Hey guys, tonight we're slipping past the warped wooden door of a medieval tavern where the ale is warm, the floors are sticky, and the locals are still arguing over who stole whose goat. The fire crackles, the room sways slightly, even if you're sober. And the smell? Imagine someone tried to distill history using sweat, cabbage, and just a hint of regret. This is where every beam groans, every mug clinks, and every glance could start a lifelong friendship or a flying meat pie. You've entered a world where bathing is suspicious, flirting is mildly dangerous, and ordering the wrong drink might summon a poet. And honestly, you probably won't survive the night without at least one bruise or an inexplicable rash. So before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Leave a comment letting me know where you're watching from and what time it is. I'd love to hear where my audience hails from. Now, please turn off the lights, set your fan for that cozy background noise, and let's begin tonight's journey. You push open the tavern door and are immediately slapped in the face by a wave of warm, muggy air, scented with fermented onions, wet wool, and something that might once have been meat. Your boots stick to the floor, maybe from spilled beer or something with teeth. Don't ask. A limping dog crosses in front of you with the confidence of someone who owns the place. A man with one eyebrow raised lifts a mug and either welcomes you or threatens you. The room is packed with people who look like they haven't blinked since the last harvest. And somewhere in the back, someone tunes a lute so severely that even the strings are begging for mercy. You slide into a spot on a slightly slanted bench, the kind that seems to be weighing its options about retiring. A serving girl throws you a look that could mean, what'll it be? Or you've got something on your face. You nod politely and try to look like the kind of person who won't start trouble. Good luck. There's no menu, just two choices, ale or something stronger. You go with the ale, mainly because you're fond of your internal organs. The mug is chipped, warm, and smells faintly of barnyard. You take a sip. It tastes like barley, disappointment, and a mysterious hint of horse. But in that moment, surrounded by laughter, low smoke, and the symphony of dozens of conversations happening all at once, you realize you've made it. You are part of this strange, chaotic, oddly charming little corner of the medieval world, and thus, your night at the tavern begins. You finally make peace with your damp, creaky seat, which, if you're honest, feels less like furniture and more like a social experiment in patience. You shift carefully, hoping you're not sitting on someone's lost tooth or a meat pie from last week. The warmth from the hearth barely reaches your knees, but it's enough to give you the illusion that you're not freezing. Welcome to the medieval version of central heating, hope, fire, and possibly an old sock stuffed in the wall crack. A barmaid approaches, not with a smile, but with the weary efficiency of someone who has seen too many tankards, fights, and confused nobles trying to pay in buttons. She grunts something that might be, what'll it be? Or just a sneeze, then slams down a clay mug before you. You didn't order, but that's not important. What matters is that it's wet, smells vaguely of apples and boot leather, and it's yours now. You lift the mug to your lips. The ale is warm and flat, carrying the unmistakable aftertaste of wooden barrels and medieval peer pressure. Still, it gets the job done, making your tongue slightly numb and your recent regrets a little fuzzier. You sip, grimace, sip again. You're adjusting. Just then, a booming laugh erupts behind you. You flinch instinctively, nearly spilling your drink, which would be tragic because it may also be dinner. A tall, red-cheeked man slaps the table, sending a spoon flying into someone else's bowl. No one flinches. The chaos is part of the rhythm here. Laughter here is currency. Volume equals value. To your left, a farmer is explaining, loudly and with wild gestures, how his pig escaped, led a goose uprising, and briefly became mayor of a nearby hamlet. It's nonsense. But his ale is full, his audience is captivated, and in a tavern, storytelling trumps accuracy every time. Across the room, someone starts to sing. You're unsure if it's intentional or if he's hiccuping in key. Either way, a few people join in. And suddenly, the air fills with the sound of a half-remembered ballad about a miller's daughter and a suspiciously romantic goat. You try to focus on the details around you. The walls are uneven, plastered with decades of grime, soot, and possibly the last bar fight. The window beside you is covered with waxed cloth, yellowed and brittle, making its best impression of glass. A rat scurries across the rafter above. It stops. Look at you. judges your outfit. Then, it scampers on like it has better places to be. It probably does. A serving boy darts past you, carrying a tray with 2 mugs and a steaming bowl. He's no older than 12, but he moves like a veteran. Ducking underarms, stepping over spilled stew, avoiding flirtatious grabs with the agility of someone who's learned the hard way. Someone shouts, "More ale!" And a second later, a tankard sails across the room like a comet. It lands with a thud. No one reacts. Here, gravity is optional, and glassware is considered emotional support. The tavern keeper emerges from behind the bar like a storm in human form. She's built like a fortress, and carries herself like a queen who has seen too much and still shows up to work. Her sleeves are rolled up, revealing forearms strong enough to bench press a barrel. She glares around the room like daring someone to test her patience. No one does. "Who threw the mug?" she barks. Silence. You could hear a fly land on a turnip. Then, someone at the back raises a hand sheepishly. It slipped. Without a word, she walks over, lifts the man by the ear, yes, the ear, and drags him back to his seat. She deposits a mop in his lap. Problem solved. Justice, tavern style. Everyone claps. You clap, partly in solidarity because you're relieved it wasn't you. Your drink is half gone, and your courage has increased by 7%. You decide to try some food. You flag down the barmaid again, who stares at you like you've requested a unicorn steak. "We've got pottage," she says. "That's it, just pottage, no details, no explanation." You nod, that's the only safe response. Minutes later, a bowl appears in front of you. It's hot, that's the good news. The less good news is that it smells like someone boiled despair with root vegetables. You stir it. Something green bobs to the top and then immediately sinks again. You taste it. It's thick, earthy, and not entirely unpleasant. It's like chewing someone's garden. It sticks to your ribs, your teeth, and your memories. This is survival food, not comfort food. Beside the bowl is a slice of bread so dense it could double as a doorstop. You try to bite it. It resists. You try again. It squeaks. You finally manage a bite and feel every grain like it's filing down your molars, one sand-sized chunk at a time. Medieval dentistry didn't stand a chance. While you chew, the tavern surges around you. Dice rolls on a table nearby. One is weighted, but no one's calling it out. A dog barks from under someone's chair. The bard is back, strumming something mournful about a lost eel. And the barmaid is now arm wrestling a customer twice her size, and winning. You breathe it all in. The smell, the noise, the sheer theatrical energy of this place. It's a mess, it's loud, it's drafty, but for all its grime and nonsense, it's also weirdly comforting. You don't know anyone's name, but you're part of something. A shared human chaos under one leaky thatched roof. And for tonight, that's more than enough. You lean back, well, not fully because the bench behind you creaks ominously, and you're not trying to reenact a medieval medical emergency. But you allow yourself a moment of stillness. The tavern breathes around you. Snorts, laughter, whispers, burps. It's not the ambiance, it's a living thing. To your right, a man with 3 teeth and 1 eyebrow is carving something into the table. You squint. Is it a crude drawing of a chicken? Or his wife? Hard to say. He glances up, winks, and continues. You decide not to ask. Someone drops a coin. Immediately, 5 people dive for it. The table shakes, your bowl nearly topples, and a dog emerges from the fray with the coin in its mouth. It trots away proudly. No one dares retrieve it. The dog has tenure. A heavy-set fellow in a fur-trimmed vest plops down beside you. He smells like sweat, pipe smoke, and faint dishonesty. He slams his mug down and announces, "I once drank 12 tankards in one night and kissed a bishop's mule." The table applauds. You're not sure why. Maybe the mule was charming. He grins at you, revealing a smile full of mystery and dental neglect. "First time, eh?" You nod. "You'll get used to it," he says, then promptly passes out, face-planting into your remaining bread. You slowly slide the loaf away from him. No sense wasting a perfect weapon, a carbohydrate. A bard drifts closer. His lute has 3 strings, 2 of which are not in tune. He starts playing, singing about a tavern wench who turned into a goose. You're not sure if it's an allegory or a cautionary tale. Either way, the melody is catchy, and everyone joins the chorus. She honked, and she danced, with feathers ablown. But oh, how she drank when she thought she was grown. You clap politely. A man 2 tables over is crying into his bowl. The song touched him. The barmaid swings by again, wiping her hands on an apron that probably began its life as a curtain. Need anything else? She asks. You ponder this. A clean cup? An antacid? A time machine? Another ale, you say instead, the safest option. She nods approvingly. You're learning. The door slams open, letting in a gust of cold air and a man wearing more layers than a cabbage. He stomps snow from his boots, or possibly pickled turnip juice, and surveys the room. Eyes meet. Someone coughs. Then, as quickly as the tension rose, it died. The man grunts, shuffles to the fire, and warms his hands. You realize this is how drama starts here. Not with shouting, but with someone quiet enough to make people nervous. A shout breaks the moment. He cheated! Someone roars. All heads turn toward the gambling table in the corner. 2 men are locked in a stare-down over a pile of mismatched coins, chicken feathers, and what looks suspiciously like a wedding ring. One of them flips the table. That's your cue to shift your bowl slightly to the left. Splash zone protocol. But then, order is miraculously restored. Not by force, but by the appearance of the tavern keeper. She doesn't say anything. She cracks her knuckles. Loudly. Everyone sits back down. Even the dog. It's like watching a god walk through a storm, and the storm apologizes. Later, you wander to the back of the room, where the hearth burns lower, and the light is soft. A group of older patrons huddle here, sipping slowly, eyes half-lidded with age, ale, or both. One of them spots you and gestures for you to sit. You do, respectfully. We've been coming here since the walls were fresh, one says. Back when the ale came in wooden bowls, and no one had discovered spoons yet. You nod like that makes perfect sense. Another adds, this place used to have a 2nd floor, but it fell down, too much dancing. A 3rd man chimes in, and goats. There is a long pause. You wisely don't ask. They tell you stories. About a fight that lasted 3 days and ended in a wedding. About a ghost that haunts the privy. About a man who claimed to be descended from Merlin but couldn't spell his name. You realize quickly, this isn't just a drinking hole. This is the record keeper of the village, where history and tall tales ferment together like everything else. You return to your spot just as someone tries to teach a chicken to count to 3 by tapping spoons. You sit, sip your drink, and feel oddly at home. It's messy. It's loud. It smells like boiled regret. But this tavern is where people gather to forget how complex the world is outside. It's warm in its fermented way. It's honest in its chaotic imperfection. And tonight, you're not just visiting. You're part of it. You settle into your spot again. Settle is generous. It's more of a negotiated truce between you and the rickety bench, which creaks like it's composing its folk song about structural trauma. You shift carefully, worried that any sudden move will snap the wood or summon a mouse union. Around you, the tavern buzzes with its usual symphony. Drunken laughter, tankards clinking, and the unmistakable sound of someone trying to yodel with a mouthful of turnip mash. You take a sip of your ale, now lukewarm and somehow more mysterious than it was 15 minutes ago. It's acquired new notes, hints of oak, regret, and possibly wet sock. Delightful. To your left, a man is arm wrestling a goose. You do a double take. Yep. Complete wing spread, honking bravado, and a small crowd cheering for the bird. The man loses. The goose is crowned champion, with a leftover wreath of parsley. No one questions this. You clap politely. A few seats down, someone is carving poetry into the table. It's not very good. You glance over. Thy eyes like beets, thy breath like stew. If love were soup, I'd slurp on you. It's raw. It's passionate. It also permanently lowers your opinion of romantic metaphors. The barkeep stomps by carrying a barrel under one arm like a loaf of bread. She has the energy of a bear late to a wrestling match. She shouts something to the back room, possibly in Latin, or just aggressive sneezing, and someone throws her a ladle. She catches it midair without looking. You start applauding, before realizing no one else is. Now everyone's looking at you. You nod solemnly. Performance art, you whisper, as if that explains anything. A sudden cry rings out. Toast! Everyone raises their mugs without needing context. A man stands on a chair and bellows, "To frogs that sing in storms, to cheese that doesn't squeak, and to pants that never betray you." You raise your mug with the rest, unsure if this is tradition or just Tuesday. Doesn't matter. It's glorious. You notice a small group huddled near the fire, whispering with wild eyes. Curiosity gets the better of you. You approach, only to discover they're drafting a peace treaty between the upstairs mice and the downstairs rats. There's a tiny scroll. There's a wax seal. There's even a mediator, an old cat with one eye and zero patience. This tavern doesn't just serve drinks. It facilitates diplomacy. Back at your table, your bread has somehow hardened into a weapon-grade biscuit. You tap it on the bench. It echoes. The man beside you nods approvingly. "Good vintage," he says. "Pre-famine crust, rare." Suddenly, a shout from across the room. "Dance battle!" You're halfway through processing, and when chairs scrape back, someone tosses a goat skull in the air like a starting pistol, and a wide circle forms. Two women, one in a cloak made of feathers, the other in a tunic with suspicious gravy stains, begin what can only be described as competitive stomping. The floor trembles. Someone starts clapping in rhythm. The bard pulls out a drum, bangs it against his chest, and begins chanting, "Left foot! Spin! Curse thy enemies with flair!" It is magnificent. You glance around. Even the most stoic patrons are nodding along. A man with no teeth is beatboxing with a jug. Someone in the back starts tossing flowers. Actual flowers. And a chicken flaps in with a single ribbon tied to its neck, clearly feeling the event's spirit. This isn't a tavern anymore. It's performance art wrapped in barley fumes. Eventually, both dancers collapse, laughing. The crowd erupts in applause. The barkeep declares it a draw and rewards each with half a turnip and a night off from washing mugs. A bard scribbles it in his notebook titled, "Songs no one asked for but will hear anyway." You return to your drink, which has grown colder and weirder, like it's been reflecting on its own life choices. You sip it anyway. That's what bravery looks like here. Then, quiet. Not silence. Just a hush. For example, someone snores gently if the room takes a breath together. The fire crackles with fewer sparks. The bard hums something soft, sweet, and possibly stolen. A cat jumps into your lap, kneads your thighs like dough, then settles in as if you've always belonged to her. You breathe. For the first time in hours, it's not through your mouth. The air smells less chaotic now, more settled. You glance around like the chaos has gone to bed and left its slippers behind. People are slumped over tables, using bread loaves as pillows. A knight snoozes beside his armor, one leg twitching like he's jousting in a dream. Even the goose has curled up on its laurels. You let your eyes drift closed for a moment, just a blink, to soak it all in. And then someone farts so loudly it echoes off the rafters. There was a brief pause. Laughter. Mugs clink. Everything is exactly as it should be. You wake up. Not from sleep, but from that foggy, blinking moment where your brain reboots like a damp scroll left too close to the fire. Your face is pressed against something crusty. You lift your head and realize it's tavern bread. Somehow your pillow is now both emotional support and a dental hazard. You sit up slowly. Around you, the tavern has entered its mythical morning phase, somewhere between dawn and hangover. The hearth is cold, candles are stubs, a chicken stands on someone's back, staring out the window like it's pondering medieval tax reform. Your arm is numb, your back aches, there's straw in your hair, your tunic smells like ale, goat, and a regrettable decision, and yet, you survived. Barely. You blink toward the bar. The barkeep is already awake, suspiciously so. She sweeps with one hand and dunks mugs with the other. Her hair is tied with yesterday's tavern flyer. Her face says she's battled 3 drunkards and 2 rats before sunrise. You try to stand. Your knees object. Your spine votes no. but you rise like a tired scarecrow learning ballet and shuffle toward the back door, seeking a chamber pot or a quiet corner to rethink your life. You open the door. Dawn smacks you with a chill. The sun peeks over the hills like it's nursing a hangover. The muddy courtyard features 2 overturned barrels, a bubbling puddle, and a cow that doesn't belong there. Someone stumbles out behind you, half awake, 100% regretting that 4th tankard of mead. He nods and vomits into a bush. You nod back. Respect. Inside, the tavern stirs. Someone hums to their mug. Having slept under a bench, the bard crawls out and begins tuning his lute, even though its strings are now shoelaces and twine. You return to what you hope was your seat. A steaming mug waits. You don't question it. It smells of herbs and hope. You sip. It tastes like boiled twigs but feels like forgiveness. Someone mutters, "Healing brew." You don't know who made it. You'd like to kiss them. Platonically. At the hearth, something sizzles in a pan. It's worrisome, since you didn't see oil or eggs earlier. You peer closer. It's porridge. Possibly. Maybe grout. Someone scoops it, sprinkles a powder, and hands it to the bard, who accepts it like he's being knighted. The rest of the tavern stirs. A woman with wild hair and one shoe tries to rouse her husband from the floor.
"We can't live here," she sighs.
"We've tried that before." He groans, hugging a bench leg like it's a dear uncle. You look around. There's a sense of community amid the soggy crusts and empty mugs. The arguing, the singing, the goat-related incidents. Somehow, it all feels curated, intentionally chaotic. People begin leaving. A blacksmith tightens his belt, slaps the bartender's back and heads out. A seamstress counts coins and drops one into a jar labeled roof repairs, or more ale, let's be honest. Even the goose waddles out, regal as ever. Someone whispers, "The tax collector's in town." The mood shifts, backs straighten, tankards vanish. Someone drops to the floor and pretends to be furniture. The barkeep sighs, "Not again." Taverns aren't just for drinking. They're information hubs. You learn about which farmer's cart lost a wheel, whose cow joined a monastery, and which lord's son ran off with a fishmonger's daughter and her trout. Your memory of last night is hazy. You recall a toast about bees, someone singing into a bucket, and being named honorary goose friend by a feather-crowned child. You decide not to fact-check any of it. The barmaid wipes your table with a rag that might once have been sentient. "You want breakfast?" she asks. You hesitate. "We got bread." You nod. "It's yesterday's." You nod slower. "With gravy." You pause. "Cold." You nod again. She slaps down a plate. It's mostly crust, but your stomach is ready to negotiate. As you eat, the tavern quiets again. Sunlight filters through waxy glass. Dust motes drift like tiny drunk ghosts. A chicken clucks outside. The bard hums something wistful and off-key. And just like that, the magic returns. Not loud, flashy, quietly settling in again. The chaos is over, for now. But tonight, it begins again. As the last stragglers stumble out the door, some upright, some at curious angles, you sit silently, sipping something vaguely warm. The barkeep leans against the bar, cracking her knuckles like she's preparing to wrestle with the very concept of fatigue. A peaceful hush settles over the tavern, which only follows hours of shouting, spilled ale, and snoring to the point of emotional collapse. But your journey isn't over. Now begins one of the most sacred and peculiar rituals of medieval tavern life: the restart. The barkeep opens the back door and shuffles a teenager holding a bucket and wearing the haunted look of someone who knows what lies at the bottom. Apprentice, assistant, janitor, his job title is overworked. He begins sweeping the floor. His broom has more thorns than bristles, and each sweep unleashes a fresh cloud of ash, breadcrumbs, and something you swear is a tooth. He doesn't blink. He sweeps, with the solemnity of a soot-covered monk, repenting for other people's sins. The barkeep shouts at him to mind the corner. He jumps. That's where the poet explores the turnip liquor. She reminds him. He nods, clearly no stranger to fermented fruit disasters. He adjusts his scarf, which might have once been a sock, and pokes the sticky corner with his broom. It makes a noise best described as medically troubling. Behind the bar, the mug station is under siege. The waitress has initiated a complete mug triage system. She holds each mug to the light, sniffs, shakes, and then decides its fate. Wash, rewash, or donate to the next adventuring party as a cursed object. One mug squeals when tapped. She tosses it into the hearth without comment. Speaking of the hearth, it's currently being tended by an older man wearing only a long shirt and a hat made of what appears to be weasel leather. He's lovingly poking the coals. No one knows if he works here. He may be part of the building. You continue chewing on the bread you started 15 minutes ago. It's less food and more edible meditation. But you need energy, because the next wave is coming. You hear them before you see them. Gravel crunching under boots, voices rising, cartwheels squeaking, and the unmistakable sound of someone confidently wrong about something. The barkeep eyes the door and mutters, "Round 2. The door creaks open, and chaos enters. A merchant, arguing with his donkey. A twitchy-eyed nun. A traveling musician with 3 instruments and 0 talent. And a man dressed head to toe in fur despite it being the middle of summer. They bring dust, drama, and the stench of powerful cheese. The tavern transforms instantly. Tables shift into almost straight lines. The apprentice begins handing out mugs with the desperation of someone fighting 12 fires using 1 bucket. The waitress slaps a rag on the counter like a declaration of war. Orders fly. The merchant demands ale. The musician calls for wine. The nun requests double-boiled water. The fur-clad man wants the usual, including extra pickles. Chapter-clad close. You watch in awe. It's a symphony of instability. Each patron playing their chaotic note with wild precision. The apprentice slips on something wet, recovers mid-fall, and lands a stew bowl on the table like a show person. Applause erupts. Feasting begins. Words like pottage, boiled leeks, and unfortunate eel echo like military commands. Trays clatter, spoons bend. A woman holds up a fork and says she found it in her mug. No one is surprised. The food is rustic. A stew bubbles with the scent of regret. Beans arrive dry enough to chime. You overhear someone asking if it's cabbage or just defeated lettuce. Another swears the pudding just insulted him. Still, everyone eats. Because no one's here for culinary greatness. They're here to understand the spirit of the tavern. That's when you notice the strange artifacts that keep this place running. A tin bell that only rings before a bar fight. A goose feather pinned to the wall, rumored to date back to the Great Bird incident. A jar labeled, "Tips or threats, we take both." A mysterious stain near the hearth no one ever steps in. Ever. Conversations swirl. Dice rattle. Someone strums a lute with spoons. A man claims he once spoke with a witch disguised as cabbage. Another bet is that he's lying. A third bet the cabbage was real. Thus, a side quest begins at table 7. You sip the last of your drink, now flavored with rosemary and consequences, and lean back gently, remembering the bench's betrayal from earlier. The tavern hums with life again. Not as wild as last night, but just as absurd. The barkeep meets your eyes. She asks if you'll stay for dinner. You smile, because no force in this world, or the next, could convince you to miss what comes next. You agreed to stay for dinner before you even knew what dinner was. In a medieval tavern, that's a leap of faith on par with saying, "I do," or casually agreeing to pet someone's goat. The barkeep nodded approvingly, then shouted something vaguely poetic into the kitchen. From somewhere behind the curtain came a muffled reply, followed by the clash of metal pots, an indignant chicken squawk, and a suspicious splash that could mean anything. You're unsure what was just cooked, frightened, or possibly baptized. But while dinner simmers dangerously near the fire, you do what all tavern-goers do. People watch and pretend you're not. Nearby, a man attempts to flirt by comparing a woman's eyes to puddles. Deep, mysterious, and occasionally full of frogs. She raises an eyebrow but doesn't leave. You count that as a win for him. Across the room, a band of travelers share tales from the road like they're bard auditions. One claims he crossed a mountain range with nothing but a turnip and sheer willpower. Another says he once arm-wrestled a bear and lost, yet earned its respect. The third says nothing and shows a suspiciously gelatinous scar. Everyone nods solemnly as if truth and absurdity are old drinking buddies. Still barefoot, dusted in flour and confusion, the server boy dashes through with a tray of mugs. He dodges a spilled boot, vaults a dog, and miraculously doesn't spill a drop. Applause erupts. He bows mid-stride and immediately knocks over a stool. Still counts. The barkeep slams a bowl in front of you. Dinner. You look down, it's brown. That's the only certainty. It steams, it trembles. It might contain peas. It might be entirely made of peas. You poke it with a spoon. Its size. You ask what it is. The barkeep shrugs. It depends on the part you're eating. You take that as encouragement. It's not bad. It's not good. It's a journey through texture, punctuated by warmth and mystery. You find something orange. A carrot? A root? A soap remnant? Hard to say. Still, non-toxic. That's a win in any century. As you chew, an old man approaches, wrapped in a robe that says, "I retired from tailoring to tell stories." He pats your shoulder. "You're new here." You nod. He leans in. "Want to know the tavern's true secret?" "Of course you do." He whispers, "There used to be 2 taverns. One for the quiet, one for the loud." Then, one night, a cat knocked over a candle between them. Boom. One big tavern. You blink. You ask if it's true. He winks. Now it is. Then he wanders off to tell someone else the same tale, word for word like gospel. You begin to suspect every corner of this tavern contains 10 stories, 7 lies and 1 prophecy. Someone near the hearth starts playing a flute. Badly. So badly that even the dog groans. But the player is so passionate, so genuinely off-key, that people listen anyway. Some tap their mugs along. A couple begins to dance. Slow, syrupy, winter sap slow. It's sweet. Off rhythm, but sweet. Then, without warning, the door slams open. A gust of wind carries in hay and tension. A cloaked figure stands in the doorway, dripping slightly, radiating mystery. Everyone freezes. The barkeep squints. Late again. The hood drops. It's a woman with wild curls, a dagger-sharp grin, and a satchel almost certainly filled with illegal cheese. She tosses it on the counter. The room erupts into cheers. Turns out, she's the wandering cheese smuggler. She visits every fortnight with wheels of milk-based contraband, banned in 3 neighboring towns. Her arrival is a celebration, a fermented festival. Someone hands you a slice without asking. It's firm. It bites back. It may be alive. It's also fantastic. As you savor your illegal cheese, a poet clears his throat theatrically. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's entertainment, the Ballad of the Three-Legged Chicken. Half the room groans. The other half cheers. You are, of course, curious. The song begins. It's as ridiculous as it sounds. There's clucking, there's stomping. There is, against all odds, a real chicken used as percussion. It works. The chorus comes around. You find yourself singing along. He ran in circles, bold and wide. He was on 3 long legs and was a farmer's pride. The barkeep crosses her arms and smiles faintly. The poet collapses into a chair. He presses a cool mug to his forehead like a sacred relic. Even the cheese smuggler hums along. At that moment, everything felt right. You've survived the stew. You've outlived the bread. You've sung poultry ballads. You're officially a tavern regular. And honestly, you wouldn't trade this weird, fermented, goose-scented place for anything. The song ends, not with drama, but with a gentle back from the chicken drummer, now sitting triumphantly on a stool as if it knew it starred in a masterpiece. The tavern erupts in raucous applause. Someone tosses a turnip onto the stage as a tip. The bard catches it mid-air and bows so deeply his hat falls into a stew. You're still grinning when the barkeep rings a tiny bell behind the bar. One sharp, crisp chime. Instantly, the mood shifts. Conversation softens. Mugs are set down quietly. The cheese smuggler tucks her satchel beneath the counter like it's sacred. The boy reappears, eyes wide. Something is clearly about to happen. You whisper to the person beside you, asking what it means. He leans in with mystery. "It's thimble hour," he says. You nod slowly, pretending you understand. You don't. Easy flang as actually digade. A man in a patchy robe climbs atop a barrel. He raises a wooden cup and yells, "It's time!" The room responds in a cheer that sounds like 12 people shouting, "Huzzah!" Mid-soup slurp. The barkeep produces a dusty bottle from beneath the bar. It's dark, corked, and highly unapproved by any known authority. She pours a tiny amount into a cup the size of a thimble and hands it to the man on the barrel. He raises it high. "To the friends we've forgotten, the debts we remember, and the tavern that forgives it all." Everyone lifts their cups, even if they're empty. He drinks. The room explodes with cheer. You lean again toward the guy. "I still have no idea what's going on." He shrugs. "No one does. We like having a good excuse to yell." Fair enough. Night also in more than until the bar. As the gas on my living barkeep spomen it to fashion. He and var sitting sald. "It is a most digin initiative clean rebisitor. You worrying to this less, and the interfuture of the world, as at the ream. You can also lead us in fathers now. The school of the thimble takes size the tavern in the bar. And to the toast the night resumes with fresh energy. The bard plays a romantic tune, questionable but earnest. A couple begins dancing, awkward but adorable. She steps on his foot. He winces. She laughs. They keep going. Night, the school in the pause of descripting to Raff. In the corner, an argument breaks out over who invented the spoon. One man claims it was Saint Marmalade of Utensilia. Another swears spoons evolved naturally from very lazy knives. A third man asks, "What's a spoon?" and is immediately handed one like it's a sacred artifact. Easy flaying agonomic as archive. These are customal guardment. You begin to realize something profound. This tavern is a university of nonsense. Every table is a lecture. Every mug is a thesis.
Every belch may be punctuation.
At one table, a carpenter convinces a pig farmer that ghosts can catch colds. The farmer retorts, "Then why do haunted places always smell damp?" Heads nod. The logic is, oddly, sound. Meanwhile, the server boy becomes the center of attention again. He balances a bowl on his head while reciting the tavern's rules backward. Rule 1. Do not eat the yellow butter. Rule 2. Never trust a bard with shiny shoes. Rule 3. If the dog takes your seat, let it. He knows things. The crowd bursts into laughter. The boy bows, spilling the bowl spectacularly, but it doesn't break. That gets applause too. In this tavern, failure performed artfully is indistinguishable from success. The barkeep fills mugs with the speed and precision of a falcon. At one point, she fills 5 mugs in a single sweep. Someone whistles. She doesn't break eye contact. Suddenly, the door opens again. Not wind, mystery, or drama. Just a donkey. It walks in confidently, reaches the hearth, and sits down. Everyone greets it with casual nods. The barkeep tosses it a carrot. No one explains. No one needs to. It's just Dave, the tavern donkey. You sip your drink and whisper to yourself, "Of course." A small group gathers by the fire for impromptu storytelling. An older woman raises a finger, commanding silence. "This," she croaks, "is the story of the tavern ghost." Everyone leans in. The tavern ghost, she begins. He was once a proud brewer, tall, bold, until he tried to put cabbage in beer. Died instantly. Now, on moonless nights, he returns to tip over mugs with passive-aggressive fury. You shiver. The bard adds, "Last week, I woke up with tangled lute strings. Definitely ghost work." The woman nods. He hated music. Everyone nods solemnly. You're 80% sure it's nonsense, but keep your cup upright. Across the room, someone opens a game board with hand-carved pieces. You squint. It's a game between chess, tavern gossip, and low-stakes gambling. You're invited. You accept. The rules are simple. Lie convincingly, drink occasionally, and always bribe the judge, who, conveniently, is the coward. You lose terribly, but earn the title Most Expressive Eyebrows, with a badge made from stale bread and ribbon. You wear it proudly. Now your cheeks ache from laughing. The air is warm. The outside world may be collapsing, but here, you're part of a community fueled by nonsense, ale, and an unspoken agreement that normal is overrated. Someone hands you a final drink, a tiny mix of fire and cinnamon with an attitude problem. Perfect. You raise your cup and declare, "To the thimble, to Dave the donkey, to spoons, ghosts, and victories won by eyebrows." The tavern erupts again. You are home. Your most expressive eyebrows badge sparks conversation. People nod at you with newfound respect. A man salutes you. A child points and says, "That's the face that defeated the flour miller." You nod with regal solemnity. This is your legacy now. Your drink still flickers in your chest, like a cinnamon-scented candle lit in your honor. You lean back, cautiously, as always, letting the hearth's warmth seep into your bones. The tavern's sounds filling your ears like an old, familiar song. Laughter flows here like gravity, possibly louder, and far more contagious. Suddenly, the waitress reappears. She slams a clay plate down in front of you. On it, a suspiciously hard wedge of cheese, 2 slices of bread that have seen war, and something round and shiny that may or may not be pickled. "Thanks for everything," she says. Then she leans in and whispers, "Try not to chew that too fast. It's still settling." You thank her, having no idea what that means. You bite the bread. It refuses. You bite harder. It relents. Grudgingly. It's as if it only gave in out of respect for your title. The cheese is sharp enough to qualify as an argument. The pickled thing as well. You are working around it for now. At the following table, the drama unfolds. A lanky man with a quill behind his ear stands and declares, "I've written a poem for my beloved, and I shall read it aloud." The crowd groans in rhythm. He presses on, unfazed. "An ode to Maud, she of the sturdy elbows." There's a cough. A mug rolls off a table. Someone mutters, "Not again." He continues, "Your elbows curve like no other. They do not squeak though you wrestle with stew." A dog howls outside. You try not to laugh into your bread, which is dangerous, as it might ricochet and injure someone. Still, the poet concludes with flair. "To Maud, may your joints never fail." Polite applause follows. The poet bows, knocks over his mug, and sits on it. Poetry is pain. As night deepens, the tavern's energy shifts. It's not silent, just cozy. The volume drops to a warm hum you can feel in your ribs. People huddle closer. The stories soften. Mugs are half full, and hands are warm. The barkeep lights more candles, their golden glow licking shadows from the corners. You notice a newcomer, a wide-eyed young man in a threadbare cloak, his hair damp from long travel. He sits cautiously, hands beneath the table, unsure if he's welcome or about to be challenged. The boy approaches with a mug, sets it gently in front of him, and says, "The first one's from the eyebrow champion." He points to you. The man looks at you, startled. Then he smiles. You nod back the way a seasoned veteran does to a rookie. A woman with bells on her sleeves starts clapping to a beat. The bard joins in, hesitant at first, then bolder. Soon, spoons are tapping mugs, boots stomp the wooden floor, and someone uses a cheese wheel as percussion. Gently. It's expensive. It's not dancing exactly, more like coordinated swaying. But it works. In the corner, a shadow shifts. A man in a cloak sits at the fire's edge, sharpening a spoon with a stone. Someone leans in and whispers, "That's Gareth. Says he's an assassin, but only during Lent." No one knows if it's a joke, not even Gareth. You begin to understand that taverns like this aren't just places, but ecosystems. Tiny worlds where rules bend, reality wobbles, and everyone belongs somewhere, even if it's just a squeaky stool in the key of B-flat. The barkeep calls the last call loudly, rattling the rafters. You glance down. Your mug is empty. Your plate is mysteriously cleaner than when it arrived. Your badge is still proudly pinned to your chest, with a splinter. You've never felt more satisfied, sitting on a chair that's likely 30% mouse. The boy is washing mugs with one hand while juggling leftover biscuits with the other. He's humming. Someone suggests writing a ballad about him. He declines, but blushes. Before the room winds down, one final toast is offered. The barkeep slams her cup down and says, "To all who've come, and all who've stayed. May your coins jingle, your bread be softer, and your stories better, each time you tell them." Everyone drinks. Even the donkey lifts a hoof in solemn agreement. You lean back. Someone places a blanket over your shoulders. The fire crackles. The dog curls up at your feet. The bard strums a lullaby so gentle that even the spoons sigh. And somewhere deep in your whole, tired, slightly tipsy soul, you realize This isn't just a tavern. It's a circus in disguise. And tonight it's yours.
You're drifting somewhere between a nap and a cheese-induced hallucination when a voice whispers, "Hey, you awake?" You jolt. It's the boy. His face is streaked with soot, flour, and what might be sauce, but his eyes sparkle with joyful mischief. "There's something you ought to see," he says. You rise slowly because everything that bends aches and doesn't bend aches, too. He leads you through the slumbering tavern, past snoring patrons and half-lifted mugs frozen mid-toast, through a side door that creaks louder than your knees. It opens to the outside world, the back courtyard, cloaked in midnight dark as ink, each breath fogging like a gentle ghost. A small fire pit, a few overturned barrels serving as stools, and a small group gathered around something. It's a pot. It's bubbling. It's glowing. The barkeep stands beside it, holding a spoon with the presence of a light weapon. "Night stew," she says. "Secret recipe, only served after the second bell." The boy nods. It has 13 ingredients. Probably. Someone hands you a bowl. It's warm, rich, and mysterious. The taste shifts with each bite. First spoon, carrot and something buttery. Second, pepper and hope. Third, is that plum? You don't ask questions. Night stew answers only to itself. This is the tavern's second shift, a quieter ritual, a stranger one. There's no music here, just the crackle of fire, the occasional whispered tale, and stomachs realizing there's more to be eaten. A woman beside you murmurs, "I once saw a man propose with a spoon from this stew." She doesn't elaborate. You're unsure if it worked. You're unsure it matters. Another begins telling a story. No performance, no theatrics. It's just a voice threading a tale into the firelight. It's about a traveling knight who traded his sword for a skillet and became a breakfast legend. You don't interrupt. You sip the stew and let the words steep. At some point, a chicken walks by. Everyone nods solemnly. "Evening, Agnes," someone says. She clucks once and continues. She's management. The fire flares, someone refills your bowl. You think it might have been the spoon. Eventually, the boy leans in again. "You tired yet?" You nod. He grins. "Come on, we'll find you a spot." He guides you back inside, where the tavern resembles a slumber party run by a slightly tipsy sorcerer. Blankets draped over benches, people curled up in cloaks, behind barrels, beneath tables. You step over a bard softly humming lullabies to a teapot. The donkey snores gently near the fire, its ears twitching in dreams. The boy points to a spot by the wall, padded with what might once have been a cushion, or a very soft turnip. "Yours for the night," he says. "No charge, but if it starts humming, move." You thank him. You sit. The blanket smells of rosemary and roasted mystery. The wooden wall behind you radiates warmth from the hearth. Someone nearby snores gently in time with the fire's hiss. You close your eyes. Then the tavern performs its final trick of the night. It breathes. Not literally. That would be terrifying. But in the way old buildings do, when they've held too many people, too many stories, too many almost forgotten dreams. It creaks. It sighs. It hums. As if saying, "I've seen worse. I've seen better. You're fine. Sleep now." A thought drifts across your mind like a feather. Maybe this isn't just a building. Maybe it's a creature, not in the usual way, but alive in spirit, stitched together from laughter, stubborn furniture, and just enough spilled mead to keep its soul pleasantly pickled. You smile in the dark. And somewhere just before sleep takes you, you hear someone whisper, "The eyebrow champion's still here." And you drift off, still smiling. Morning doesn't arrive with fanfare. It comes with a gentle breeze skimming the floorboards and poking you softly in the nose. You stir, groggy, unsure if you're still dreaming or sleeping in a stew-scented memory. You blink. A chicken is staring at you. It's perched gracefully on a nearby barrel, eyes half-lidded as if it spent the night silently judging everyone's life choices, specifically yours. You stare back, unsure whether a greeting is expected. It blinks once, hops down, and walks off like a manager wrapping up an unscheduled performance review. You stretch. Everything pops. Your spine, knees, and eyebrows crack slightly, which is impressive. Around you, the tavern is slowly waking like a drunken bear. There's a communal groan from the general direction of a blanket pile. Someone toots delicately in the back. The fire has died chiefly to sleepy embers, but they still glow gently, casting red light like a dozing heartbeat. You sit up, brushing breadcrumbs off your sleeves. The boy appears. How is he standing upright already? And hands you a steaming cup. You eye it warily. Morning broth, he says. Made from bones, herbs, and the crushed hopes of people who couldn't keep rhythm last night. You sip. It's salty, savory, and weirdly compelling, like drinking bravery, or extremely determined celery. He flops beside you, exhaling like a man 3 times his age. 3 broken mugs, 1 twisted ankle, a poet crying under the table. Yeah, I'd say it was a quiet night. You nod solemnly. What about Dave? The donkey? Still asleep. He snores in Latin. Of course he does. You take another sip and glance around. Indeed, the bard is under the table, clutching his lute and mumbling about forbidden chords. The cheese smuggler is slumped behind the bar, clutching her case like a relic. Spoons are stacked, mostly. The benches are still upright. The tavern, as always, endures. And then, there's a knock at the door. Not loud, just 3 purposeful knocks. Everyone freezes, even the chicken. The barkeep, somehow already alert, composed, and possibly immortal, steps to the door, opens it slowly, and peers out. Oh, it's you! In steps a man far too well groomed for this place. His boots are shiny, his belt is polished, his cloak has embroidery. Embroidery. In this tavern, that's like showing up to a mud wrestling match wearing lace gloves. He clears his throat. I'm here for the monthly ale inspection, he says in the tone of a man who has never been hit with a tankard, but really ought to be. The barkeep doesn't flinch. We passed last month. No, you didn't. You set my clipboard on fire. And yet, here you are again. He sighs. I have to file a report. Could you file it quietly? No. There is a tense silence. Then the bard sneezes from under the table. Clipboard man flinches. The chicken squawks. A spoon falls. It is officially too early for this. The barkeep groans. Fine, go sniff our barrels. You follow from a distance because this is now a tavern theater. Clipboard man approaches the row of casks, sniffs one, knocks twice, and mutters a hmm. He opens the spout, smells the ale, takes a sip, and judges. He gags. The barkeep smiles. That one's for polishing boots. He scribbles something on his parchment. And this one? For uninvited guests. He stops drinking. After 15 minutes of sniffing, scribbling, and making vaguely offended noises at otherwise fine barrels, he snaps his notebook shut, sighs theatrically, and says, You pass. The barkeep raises an eyebrow. Again? Yes, he mutters. Again. Someone claps. It is unclear if it's sarcastic or celebratory. Probably both. He leaves. The door shuts. The room exhales like a held breath. The boy turns to you. He comes every month. Every time, a little shame. Once we told him the cider was haunted. You nod. Was it? Only on Wednesdays. You stretch again. Someone hands you a half-burnt pancake. You accept it. It tastes like ash and optimism. The perfect medieval breakfast. As the sun climbs higher, more locals drift in. A baker with flour on her eyebrows. A shepherd who smells like wool and faraway fields. A child clutching a frog for emotional support. The tavern shifts into daytime mode. Less wild, more practical, but still its creature. Someone starts repairing a bench broken during last night's dance mishap. 2 men play a game involving stones, chalk lines, and mild cheating. The bard begins composing a new ballad about the inspector, Sir Sniffs-a-Lot. You glance out the window, or the hole pretending to be one. It's a bright day, crisp and full of reasons not to go outside. You decide to stay, because the tavern doesn't just serve drinks, it serves stories, it serves chaos, and just enough broth to make you believe you can survive one more day. Maybe you'll leave later, but not just yet. You decide you're not going anywhere, at least not until the bread softens or the donkey finishes his morning affirmations, whichever comes first. The tavern is in its late morning rhythm now. Not exactly busy, but alive in that peculiar way only a place held together by ale fumes and communal delusion can be. There's a comfortable hum in the air, tankards being rinsed, spoons clinking lazily in bowls, and someone snoring behind the bar, which is impressive considering the bar is 3 feet high and made of solid oak. You find yourself seated beside an older woman, knitting something the size of a tablecloth, but shaped suspiciously like a sock. She smiles without looking up. "You're the eyebrow champion," she says. You nod. "Fame is weird here." She adds, "You remind me of my second husband. He once tamed a goose using only eye contact and stale turnips." You try to form a response, but realize there's no correct one. She goes back to knitting. The sock continues to grow. Across the room, the bard teaches a goat to balance a cup on its head. Why? It's unclear, but the goat seems invested. Occasionally, it bleats with purpose. A small crowd watches clap softly and places wagers. The lad stumbles over with a small parchment menu. It's handwritten, partially smudged, and has been edited at least 3 times in the margins. "Today's specials," he says. You squint at it. Mystery stew. Again. Cheese, emotionally complex. Bread. Sharp, blunt, or legal liability. Something called the afternoon surprise, with 3 question marks. You ask cautiously, "What's the surprise?" He shrugs. "Sometimes it's soup. Sometimes it's not. Once, it was a metaphor." You order it anyway. Because if you've learned anything here, it's that sometimes nonsense makes the best lunch. While you wait, a man in the corner clears his throat theatrically and says, "Right, let's discuss ducks." No one questions this. He continues, "Are they spies for the river? Have you seen their eyes? Suspicious, calculating, always wet." A heated discussion breaks out. Someone draws a diagram. Someone else accuses a chicken of eavesdropping. The chicken denies it. You receive your afternoon surprise. It appears to be porridge, but it blinks at you. You blink back. Then it settles down and tastes not bad. Nutty, comforting, slightly judgmental. Outside, it begins to drizzle. It was not real rain, just enough moisture to make the roof groan and the windows fog like the tavern is sighing deeply. Someone near the fire tells a ghost story. Not the terrifying kind, the cozy kind. It's about a spirit who lives in the ale barrel and only appears when someone sings off key, which, in this tavern, is hourly. They say he's responsible for the floating bits, insure mugs. You silently hope that's true. It's better than the alternatives. The fire is restoked with a heroic thunk. A puff of smoke briefly fills the room, smelling of peat, burnt parchment, and last week's meat pies. You breathe it in. It's oddly comforting. A trio of merchants arrives, soaked from the rain and covered in mud up to the knees. They look like walking advertisements for laundry's early retirement. One of them sits beside you and grumbles. Bloody roads, all mud and sheep. Mostly sheep. He removes one from his satchel. "Found this in my pocket." The sheep bleats. The bartender sighs. "I'll get the basket," she mutters. The merchants order mead. Strong stuff. One of them toasts, "No more livestock in my underwear." You raise your mug in solidarity. The band plays something slow, a lullaby. It's one of those nameless tunes that feel like they've always existed. The fire crackles in agreement. Then, as if summoned by the song, the door creaks open, and a woman walks in a damp cloak that might qualify as a small pond. She holds up a scroll. "I'm here for the tavern quiz," she announces. Half the room groans. The other half perks up. It's quiz night. The lad rolls out a scroll longer than the bar. "Rules are simple," he says. "Answer incorrectly, drink. Answer correctly, still drink, but smugly." You're dragged into a team with the knitter, the merchant, and the goat, who counts as a teammate now. The questions range from mildly educational to wildly hypothetical. What year did the soup rebellion happen? If a king has 3 knights and 2 chickens, how long until he's overthrown? Spell fermentation backward while sneezing. Your team performs admirably. The goat eats 1 answer sheet. When he tries to cheat, The knitter threatens the bard with a crochet needle. The merchant keeps yelling, "The answer is fish," regardless of the question. You lose spectacularly. And you've never been proud. The barkeep declares everyone the winner, which feels like a tavern thing. Mugs are raised, toasts are made, and the bard starts a song so deeply off-key it might summon the barrel ghost. As you sip your mystery mead, you feel the room swaying gently. Not from drink, but from the rhythm of shared absurdity. This tavern isn't just a place, it's a living memory, and you're somehow writing in real time. And right now, in a world ruled by rain, riddles, and rogue livestock, you wouldn't want to be anywhere else. The quiz night may be over, but the consequences are just beginning. The merchant on your team, still convinced every answer is fish, has started composing an epic poem entitled Ode to Incorrect Confidence. He's 3 stanzas deep and rhymed courage with porridge. It's going well. He stands on a stool to perform but falls off before finding a rhyme for mead. No injuries, unless you count dignity. Across the tavern, the bard is passionately debating with the goat. It's unclear who started it or what it's about, but there's a chalkboard involved now. The goats have already won 2 rounds and are eating the tiebreaker question. Consensus. The goat wins again. The barkeep doesn't intervene. She's fixing a loose floorboard using a hammer, 3 nails, and sheer disdain. You offer to help. She looks at you like you just volunteered to hug a beehive. Best not, she says. Instead, you find yourself pulled into a new game by the lad, Tavern Charades. It's not like modern charades. It's louder, somehow more physical, and includes objects as props, and occasionally livestock. The first prompt is a nobleman discovering a hedgehog in his boot. A woman performs it so well that you briefly believe there's a hedgehog in your boot. You check, just to be safe. Your turn comes. You're handed a stick, a mug, and a hat shaped like a duck. The prompt? A wizard disguising himself as a bakery. You don't know how to mime that, so you yell, "Bread!" and roll dramatically on the floor. Someone guesses fever. Close enough. You get a round of applause and a pat on the back from the chicken. The game ends when someone tries to mime existential dread and accidentally flips a bench. No one's hurt. Everyone claps. Again, normal. As the night deepens, so does the flavor of the mead, or your tolerance is lowering by the hour. Everything tastes faintly of honey and triumph. Even the bread, which earlier was comparable to roofing tile, now carries a certain rustic charm. Your teeth may have adapted. A newcomer arrives, tall, cloaked, carrying a sack that jingles. The room quiets subtly. The barkeep eyes him. He scans the tavern and asks, "Anyone up for a wager?" Of course they are. He sits at a table and pulls out a deck of cards made from thin slats of wood and faded illustrations. The game begins with rules no one understands, but everyone pretends to. It involves drawing, bluffing, and occasionally mooing. People bet coins, buttons, and even a rather distressed-looking sausage. You watch, mesmerized. The cloaked man loses twice, wins thrice, and then vanishes mid-hand. Literally, just gone. Everyone blinks. Someone says, "Ah, must have been Tuesday." And just like that, conversation resumes. The sausage is returned to its owner unharmed. The cards are reshuffled. You shrug and sip. Later, a whisper starts to circulate. "Midnight wager," someone says. You ask what that is. The lad leans in. It's like Truth or Dare, but with more soup and fewer survivors. You're intrigued, obviously. The barkeep clears the table. A candle is lit. A turnip is placed in the center. Why? No one knows. Tradition. One by one, players sit, make their wager, and spin the turnip. It points to the baker. She declares, "I wager a week of muffins." Everyone gasps. That's serious. She's dared to recite a love poem while holding 2 eels. She does. Beautifully. The game continues. Someone juggles eggs. Someone confesses they once dated a scarecrow. And someone else, quietly and with great dignity, eats an entire onion while maintaining eye contact with a goose. Finally, it's your turn, you wager. My last slice of cheese and the right to sit closest to the fire. The turnip spins. It points at the bard. He grins. I dare you to explain why spoons are better than forks. In rhyme. You stand, dramatic. You raise your mug, and you begin. Oh, spoons, round friends in metal coats, you carry soups and gravy boats. While forks may stab and knives may slice, a spoon hugs your food, how lovely. The room erupts. You are declared the winner of the midnight wager. Your cheese is returned untouched. You are crowned spoon laureate. The badge is a button sewn to your tunic with what appears to be licorice string. You wear it with honor. The fire burns low. Someone yawns so hard that their chair shifts. You feel your eyelids tug downward, heavy from laughter and warmth, and ferment everything. The barkeep makes the round, extinguishing candles with gentle puffs. Last call, she murmurs, though no one orders. You nestle into your chosen spot by the hearth, wrapped in a blanket that smells of thyme, smoke, and slightly of cat. And as the final ember dims and the last mug clinks into silence, you realize, you came here a stranger, but now, you belong. You wake with a start, unsure whether the rooster crowing is real or just a bard warming up again. You sit up, blink, and immediately discover two things. You're wearing someone else's cloak. 2. The chicken is wearing yours. There's no explanation offered, nor expected. The tavern is drowsy in that particular post-midnight wager way. A few souls are still scattered about like forgotten props. The bard asleep on a table, his face gently pressed into sheet music. The merchant curled under a bench, muttering fish in his sleep. And the goat in a chair, looking far too satisfied with itself as usual. You rise, carefully, and tiptoe past someone using a bucket as a pillow. A mug rolls gently under your foot, and you instinctively whisper sorry to it. It feels right. You approach the bar, where the barkeep is already awake. Of course, she is. She's slicing something vaguely root-like with a knife that looks like it once doubled as a door hinge. She glances up. "Morning," she says. "You're later than the goat." You nod respectfully. That feels like a reasonable benchmark now. She hands you a cup of something hot and herbal. You sip. It tastes like hay and forgiveness. You don't ask what's in it. You're not sure your sense of reality is ready. You settle onto a stool. The tavern breathes slowly. Between a rat and a lad. You hope you imagined that. They eat in near silence. The goat judges them silently from its chair. When the nobles finish, they stand, brush off invisible crumbs and say, "We'll include your establishment in the registry." The barkeep raises an eyebrow. "For taxes?" The noble shrugs. "Perhaps." "Take it off the list," she replies. He eyes her. "On what authority?" She leans forward, eyes gleaming. "On the authority of a woman who once kicked a bishop into a barrel for oversalting soup." A long pause. The noble stares at her. Then he slowly nods. The nobles leave. The room exhales. The bard switches to a cheerful jig. The goat headbutts the door closed. "Never again," the barkeep mutters. "Next time we pretend to be a barn." Everyone agrees. You sit back down. The stew is cold. You eat it anyway. It tastes like victory. The moment the last noble disappears down the road, boots too clean, egos too fragile, the tavern erupts into the celebration usually reserved for harvest festivals and accidental weddings. Someone immediately leaps onto a table and yells, "The registry is dead!" A round of cheers follows, even from the chicken, who may or may not fully understand bureaucracy, but cheers anyway. The lad breathes out so hard he topples a stool. The goat climbs onto it, claiming victory. The barkeep mutters, "Someone get me a real drink." Within moments, mugs are passed around like blessings. The music swells, plates reappear, and the tavern collectively remembers who it is. Loud, joyful, slightly sticky, and proudly unregistered. The bard shifts into something lively, an old drinking song called "Ale to the Left, Secrets to the Right," and you're pulled into a group dance before you can protest. The steps are unclear, the rhythm chaotic, and someone keeps yelling, "Now stomp!" at unpredictable intervals. You laugh so hard your sides ache. A stranger grabs your hand and spins you like a ladle in soup. You twirl into a shepherd, knock over a bench, and accidentally dip a napkin in someone's cider. No one minds. It's that kind of morning. At some point, the lad clambers up onto the hearth ledge and declares, "We hereby name today Unlisted Freedom Day." There's roaring approval. Someone suggests inventing a feast for the occasion. Someone else starts planning costumes. Someone else, who may have already had too much, suggests everyone dresses as tax collectors, but sexy? They are promptly and respectfully ignored. The barkeep bangs her ladle against the bar. Enough celebrating. We still need to. Oh, what's the point? Fine. Feast it is. There's a flurry of motion. Tables are pushed together. Ingredients are gathered from every corner of the pantry. Turnips, leeks, cheese wheels, suspicious herbs, and a loaf of bread someone claims is older than the tavern itself. A decision is made to stew everything that isn't nailed down. Someone eyeing a chair is gently redirected. You're put in charge of slicing vegetables. You're handed a knife so blunt it qualifies as a spoon's cousin. You try your best. The barmaid oversees a pot large enough to be its own small country. The lad stirs it with a paddle that looks suspiciously like an oar. The donkey contributes by eating all the carrot peels, efficient if mildly unsettling. By the time the sun peaks, the tavern's aroma is downright heavenly. Stew, baked apples, something someone swears is fig pie, and at least one dish that involves pickling and prayer. People gather at the long table. There are no assigned seats, just laughter, elbows, and the clink of mismatched spoons. A toast is made. To this glorious dump, where the ale's always lumpy, and the stew might surprise you, but the company never will. Mugs clink. You bite into a slice of pie, which tastes like nostalgia and bad decisions, but in the best way. Stories start flowing like cider. Someone tells how the tavern once repelled a Viking invasion, using only cheese, mirrors, and a well-timed kazoo solo. Another swears they saw a ghost in the privy last week, whispering, "Flush me." The goat is now wearing a tiny crown made of radishes and presiding over the pie table. No one questions it. You're halfway through a bowl of everything stew when someone leans over and says, "Hey, you know the secret about the tavern roof, right?" You pause, spoon midair. "No?" They grin. "Don't worry. You'll find out next time it rains." You decide not to press further. Eventually, as bellies fill and the lad starts softly humming a song about potatoes and lost love, the mood shifts again. Not sleepy, yet, but mellow. A gentle glow settles over the room. People lean closer. Voices drop to a murmur. The kind of stillness that only comes after chaos, or stew. You find yourself sitting beside the barkeep. She's sipping something from a carved wooden mug, watching the room like a proud general surveying a battlefield won with laughter and gravy. She nods at you. You've lasted longer than most. You smile. "I think the tavern's growing on me." She chuckles. "Give it enough time, and it'll name a chair after you." You look down at the wobbly seat you've grown attached to. "Maybe this one?" She shrugs. "If it hasn't been claimed by the goat, sure." There's a long, comfortable silence. You sip your drink. The candlelight dances across the walls. The bard plays a gentle melody on a lute strung with hope and likely some fishing line. And for a brief, beautiful moment, the world is no longer a mess of wars, taxes, and rain-soaked boots. It's just this: a spoonful of stew, a clatter of mugs, a laugh you didn't expect, a tavern that refuses to be anything but itself. The feast winds down, but the chaos does not. Someone tries to stack all the empty mugs into a single towering sculpture. It wobbles with the confidence of a goat on stilts, teeters like a bard's sense of pitch, and finally collapses with a mighty clatter. Applause. It wins Best Short-Lived Architecture. A small group gathers near the hearth to debate the best way to store pickled beets for wartime. The argument escalates until someone throws a beet across the room and lands perfectly in a mug. More applause. This is now a tavern sport.
The bard immediately begins composing the Crimson Root of Destiny. He insists it'll be his opus. You're not sure he knows what opus means. He rhymes hero with beat burrito. It's a work in progress. Meanwhile, you find yourself roped into something called stool jousting. 2 people, 2 stools, 2 brooms. No dignity. Rules are optional. You sit backward on your stool. A broom is handed to you. You're given a hat made from cabbage and ambition. Your opponent, the merchant, now calling himself Sir Fish-a-lot. His eyes are full of drama. The lad announces the match. Someone throws petals, or shredded turnips, into the air. You charge. You clash. Both hats fall off simultaneously, and you crash into a barrel of apples. You emerge soaked, but victorious. The barkeep calls it the most entertaining health hazard she's ever seen. Someone hands you a mug of something steaming. You've earned it, the lad says. You take a sip. It's spicy, fizzy, and almost certainly illegal. Experimental cider, the lad explains. The bard made it. With herbs. You nod slowly. Herbs is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. You return to your spot by the hearth. The goat is already there, obviously. It lounges like royalty, now wearing a necklace made of biscuits. You nod. It nods. Mutual respect. As the sun lowers, the tavern enters that golden hour haze. Light spills through warped windows, catching dust midair like glitter from another century. Even the mugs seem to glow with mischief. The door creaks open. A traveler steps in, covered in mud, mystery, and 2 live frogs tucked in his belt, for balance. No one reacts. He slaps a scroll on the bar. I have news, he says. Groans echo. Is it war? The barkeep asks. No. Taxes? No. Another noble wedding? Worse.
She sighs. Go on.
He leans in. A troupe of actors is coming. A collective gasp. Someone clutches pearls, possibly stolen. Actors are not disliked. They're feared. Not for drama, but energy. They juggle onions, quote sonnets mid-bite, and interpretively dance without warning. It's exhausting. How many? The barkeep asks. A dozen, says the traveler. Another gasp. The bard looks both thrilled and deeply threatened. They'll be here by sunset. And just like that, the tavern erupts. Curtains are shaken, furniture rearranged, and space cleared. The lad tapes a sign to the door. Theater zone ahead. You, of course, are recruited. Your role? Lighting. You're handed a lantern and told to hold it high and make it dramatic. You practice poses, arm extended, chin high, expression between awe and mild concern. The sun dips, the door bursts open, they arrive. The actors spill in like chaos, wearing velvet, cloaks, masks, absurd hats. One wears a cabbage cape, another juggles apples and a potato while quoting a sonnet. A woman twirls, sneezes, and releases a dove. It lands on the goat. No one blinks. It's a Tuesday. Their leader, tall, painted cheeks, dangerously charismatic, bows. We are here, he declares, to delight you. Someone in the back yells, you better. The show begins. They act, sing, and recite poems in 4 languages, 3 of which might exist. One mimes the life cycle of cheese. Another becomes a spoon. A shadow puppet sequence is so emotional that it moves the lad to tears. The goat claps. You hold the lantern high, casting grand shadows. The bard joins in with music. The entire tavern becomes a stage. Laughter fills the beams. Someone cries over a scene involving a biscuit and betrayal. And when it seems it can't escalate further, the finale begins, a human pyramid. At the top, the smallest actor holds a sign, tip your bard, hug your goat, long live the tavern. The room erupts, coins fly, cheese is shared, mugs are raised in triumph. The barkeep watches the chaos, arms crossed. They'll be impossible to get rid of, she mutters. But you smile. You wouldn't want them to leave. The actors refuse to leave. Not out of rudeness, mind you, just momentum. They declare that the tavern has excellent acoustics, soulful floorboards, and a goat with real stage presence.
And just like that, a full-blown multi-day performance residency is born. No one seems to have agreed to it. No one seems upset either. By dawn the next day, the tavern has been transformed into a theater, a rehearsal hall, and, on alternating hours, a mime academy. The bar is now a prop table. The fireplace has been renamed the Ember of Dreams. The chicken has been cast as the Spirit of the Moon. It's doing well, considering it's a chicken. You wake up to the sound of someone shouting, "Where is my dramatic tunic?" Followed by the bard replying, "I'm wearing it, and I'm not giving it back." From your corner seat, now affectionately referred to as stage-left napping nook, you sip your morning tea and observe the madness with the patience of someone who's seen worse, yesterday. An actor leaps across the room, dramatically whispering about betrayal. Another follows, limping for no apparent reason. The goat, wearing a velvet cape, enters stage right. Everyone applauds. The barkeep watches the chaos while stirring stew like it owes her money. "We've had knights, minstrels, even a wizard once," she mutters. "But actors, they multiply like rabbits, with louder shoes." You offer to help. She nods solemnly. "Distract them." So you do. You begin by suggesting a new game, Tavern Theater Roulette. Here's how it works. Someone shouts a title. The actors must perform a scene. The scene must include at least one object from the tavern. Bonus points for involving livestock. You suggest the first title, The Lament of the Overcooked Turnip. Two actors immediately launch into a tragic romance between a root vegetable and the farmer who didn't water it enough. One of them sobs into a soup ladle, the other wears a sackcloth as a veil. The goat plays the turnip's ghost. You are moved to tears, or maybe it's just the onion smoke wafting in. Someone shouts, "Do the cup that wasn't." A solo monologue begins. "I was once whole, ceramic, proud, until the dishwasher of destiny cracked my soul." A mug is hurled. It bounces harmlessly. Someone yells, "Encore!" The barkeep sighs. "I'll need a new shelf." You escape to the courtyard for fresh air and are met by a less absurd scene. An actor is practicing sword fights with a broom. Another is teaching a goose to curtsy. You don't ask. The lad joins you, carrying a bowl of stew and wearing a crown made of celery. "We've scheduled 6 performances, 3 workshops, and a spontaneous interpretive chant about longing," he says between bites. "Also, someone wants to cast you as the role of wise tavern spirit." You blink. "Why me?" He gestures to your mug, your blanket, and your general vibe. You radiate soup wisdom. You consider. You sip your tea. You nod. Rehearsals resume with gusto. There are arguments over delivery, lighting, and whether the chicken should wear shoes. The bard insists on composing a new theme song for each act. Someone has fashioned a curtain by afternoon using old cloaks and broom handles. It sags heroically. The premiere approaches. You are indeed cast as the wise tavern spirit. Your costume consists of your regular clothes, plus a scarf dipped in glitter. You're told to look ethereal, but slightly annoyed. You reply, "So, just be myself?" They cheer. The audience gathers. Mostly tavern regulars, a few curious travelers, and one woman who wandered in looking for the bakery but stayed for the drama. The show begins. It is chaos. Beautiful, improvised chaos. Act 1. A forbidden romance between a knight and a pie. Act 2. A courtroom trial with a spoon is the defendant. Act 3. Your moment. Delivering a monologue from atop a stool about the importance of soup in times of crisis. You crush it. The chicken nods approvingly. The crowd goes wild. There are standing ovations. There are bowing goats. The finale involves 3 actors, a spinning broom, and a spontaneous food fight. A potato hits the ceiling and never comes down. After the final curtain, read, someone shouting, "The end!" The tavern erupts into cheers. Mugs are raised. The barkeep toasts. "To theater, may it never return in such numbers." You retire to your stool, a local celebrity now, sipping something sweet and celebratory. The lad plops down beside you, celery crown slipping. "You did good," he says. "Real goose-level good." You smile. Outside, stars twinkle. Inside, the fire glows. The actors settle corners, already dreaming of tomorrow's performance. The echo of the broken tankard. You lean back, content. You've survived nobles, stew, midwinter cheese, and actors. You wonder, with a smirk, what's next? You wake the next morning to the sound of dramatic sobbing. Not from pain nor grief, but from overacting. An actor sits atop a barrel near the hearth, clutching a handkerchief, which might be a sock, weeping into it with operatic flair. "Why," he cries, "must the performance end when the spirit still stirs?" The chicken gently pecks his boot, unimpressed. You rub your eyes. The tavern looks like it hosted a very theatrical earthquake. Chairs are strewn about like forgotten punchlines. A lute lies broken in the corner, possibly on purpose. Someone has turned the hearth into a shrine for the great spoon of scene 4. You're too tired to ask. The barkeep trudges past carrying a tray of mugs, each one engraved with something dramatic. To be, to have been, and probably not. She glances at the weeping actor and mutters, "Third morning in a row. Someone take him outside and point at a rainbow." You stretch. Every joint cracks like a tiny drum roll. You feel ancient and oddly spry, like a bard who slept on a metaphor. You wander toward your favorite seat, still labeled Tavern Spirit's Corner, and are handed a bowl of breakfast porridge with the consistency of wet sand and the aroma of faint hope. It's oddly comforting. The lad flops beside you, hair even messier than usual, holding a bundle of scrolls. "Guess what?" he says. You raise an eyebrow, now a registered emotional tool. "We've been invited to the Tavern Games." You pause mid-spoonful. "The what now?" He grins. "It's a regional contest. Taverns from all over send their best at drinking, storytelling, shouting, and broom jousting. We've been nominated." You blink. "Are there prizes?" "Immense prestige," he says proudly, "and a ham." "Ah, yes, the accurate measure of victory." Preparations begin immediately. The tavern transforms again, this time into a training ground for nonsense. The bard leads vocal warm-ups involving humming, shouting, and biting an apple mid-area. The goat leads coordination drills. The actors teach posture and how to fall over fabulously. You're signed up for 3 events: the dramatic toast, speed stew identification, the final yell. You must deliver a powerful, poetic toast for the first event that moves at least one person to tears or hiccups. You practice for hours. Your best draft includes, "May your tankard never leak unless you wish it." The stew contest is more dangerous. You'll be blindfolded and fed 5 mystery stews. You must identify at least 3 ingredients in each. "That's not bad," you say. The lad replies, "One of them contains fish, turnips, and justice." You nod slowly. "Understood." The final yell is a scream judged for volume, duration, and emotional complexity. You're told to think of tax collectors, stubbed toes, and your childhood goat leaving you for a rival bard. You add lukewarm cider for good measure. The tavern buzzes with anticipation. The bard composes a theme song titled "Spoons Before Glory." The goat's metal is polished. The barkeep, skeptical but supportive, provides performance-enhancing gruel. Finally, the day arrives. You set off at dawn, a mismatched caravan of chaos. Actors juggling in the back, the bard composing mid-stride, the chicken in a crate labeled "Definitely Not Important." You march for hours. Mud, birds, confusion. You lose the merchant at one point. He returns on a cart of beets, claiming he traded dreams. Eventually, you arrive. It's a field with tents and shouting. You've made it to the annual regional tavern games. Each tent represents a different tavern. There's the soggy wench, ye old dramatic hiccup, and the aggressively named mead and malice. Flags fly. Someone juggles rutabagas. A man screams vengeance while eating an onion. You feel at home. The events begin. First up, the dramatic toast. You step onto the stage, which is a barrel with aspirations. You raise your mug. The crowd quiets. You speak. To spilled drinks and found friends. To creaky chairs and sharper cheese. To nights remembered not in full, but in crumbs. Crumbs of bliss. A tear rolls down the merchant's cheek. A hiccup echoes in the distance. Success. Next, stew identification. You are blindfolded. You are fed. Stew 1. Garlic, onions, and shoe polish. Stew 2. Fish, turnips, betrayal. Stew 3. Leeks, regret, and possibly pear. You guess them all. You are hailed as the tongue of truth. Someone makes you a sash from sausage links. You wear it proudly. Finally, the final yell. You step up. You breathe in. You scream. It begins as a growl, crescendos into fury, and tapers into something vaguely poetic. People stop and stare. A horse bolts. A tent collapses. Silence follows. Then, applause. You are victorious. Your tavern wins the wooden, splintered, glorious cup and ham. You march home triumphant, ham held aloft like a baby wrapped in glory. Back at the tavern, the feast begins. Bards sing, stew flows. The goat wears the cup as a helmet. You sit by the hearth, exhausted and elated. The barkeep hands you a mug. You did good, she says. You raise it high. To friends, to spoons. To whatever happens next. The ham is gone. Not stolen, not misplaced. Devoured. It vanished between the second round of mead and the bard's fourth encore of Stew Me Once, Shame on You. One moment, the prized ham sat on its throne of greens, shining with glazes and glory. The next, it was a bone, a memory, and a legend. Naturally, no one is quite sure who ate the last piece. Some blame the merchant, who insists he was framed by poultry. Others suspect the goat, who has a suspicious glaze on its beard. The lad swears he saw the barkeep wielding a carving knife like a dueling saber. She denies everything. You, for your part, are too full to care. The post-victory feast has turned into a joyful sprawl. People lie across benches like heroic casualties of comfort. The bard is curled in a barrel, strumming lullabies to his boots. The actors are performing a tragedy titled The Lost Ham, a Roast of Regret. Yes, someone is wearing a ham bone as a crown. You sit by the hearth, mug in hand, wrapped in a blanket that smells faintly of time and theatrical panic. The barkeep slides onto the bench beside you. You know, she says, you're the first person to ever bring back a trophy in the tavern, lad, in one piece. You raise an eyebrow. Was he not supposed to make it back? She sips her drink. We usually bet against it. The lad, currently asleep upside down on a stool, snores loudly in response. She continues, You've been here, what, a week now? Maybe 2? Feels longer. You nod. Time in the tavern is elastic. Hours stretch, days fold. Somehow you remember last night's cheese duel better than your birthday. She eyes you. You thinking of staying longer? You pause, and in that pause you realize something. You stopped thinking of this place as strange. The chaos became a comfort. The weird became normal. The goat became, well, not yours, but you'd attend its wedding. You nod. She smirks. Good. I need someone to clean the flue. Before you can object, the door swings open with such dramatic force, it nearly unhinges the hinges. A young woman stumbles in, soaked, breathless, clutching a scroll like it contains forbidden secrets. She gasps. Trouble's coming. Half the tavern groans. The other half keeps chewing. What kind of trouble? The barkeep asks flatly. The woman waves the scroll. A royal inspection of all regional taverns. Tomorrow. The spoon drops from your hand. Even the goat blinks. Royal inspection, not just nobles. Velvet hats. Ceremonial quills. Officials trained to detect improperly enthusiastic furniture. The barkeep stares into the middle distance. They'll look for permits, ledgers, structural integrity. The merchant mumbles. We haven't had structural integrity since the cider leak of 21. Panic ripples through the room. The lad bolts upright. The barkeep stands. Her eyes gleam. We do what we always do when things go wrong. She looks at the bard. We lie. By sundown, the tavern is unrecognizable. benches aligned, candles trimmed, walls reinforced with curtains and optimism. A sign reads, "Sanitary zone. Please do not lick the logs." The goat is rebranded as service manager. Everyone has a title. The bard is now head of acoustics. The lad is a junior beverage curator. The merchant becomes the chief financial disorganizer. You're the guest experience coordinator, which mainly involves smiling and pretending the chicken isn't wearing someone's tax documents as a poncho. The plan is simple. Charm them. Distract them. Pray they don't ask to see the basement. Morning comes. Too soon. Too bright. You're buttoned into a cleaner tunic, holding a tray of bread rolls like priceless artifacts. The barkeep paces like a general awaiting invasion. And then, they arrive. 3 officials in matching cloaks, eyes sharp, quills ready. They sweep in, sniff disapprovingly. They can actually begin poking at everything. "Where's your license for musical performance?" The bard plays a soft lullaby. One official tears up. "My grandmother sang that. Carry on." "Why is the goat indoors?" "It's emotional support." "Why is it wearing shoes?" "Emotional shoes." You're asked about customer service protocols. You respond, "Our mugs always smile back." The official writes it down without blinking. They examine the hearth. The sanitary log sign impresses them. They sample the cider. Sniff, sip, pause. You hold your breath. It's uncommonly rustic. The barkeep bows. "Thank you. It's aged in confusion." They nod. They inspect every corner, every beam, every suspicious draft. And at last, they gather at the door. One clears his throat. In conclusion, your tavern is unconventional. You brace yourself, but spirited. You exhale. He stamps the scroll. Approved. They leave. The door closes. Silence. Then, "We passed!" Cheering erupts. Dancing follows. The bard weeps. The goat faints. Someone uncorks a celebratory jar of very optimistic wine. The barkeep grins. "Remind me to fake a royal visit more often." You collapse into your corner, exhausted and euphoric. You've survived drama, stew, bureaucracy, and creative interpretations of hygiene. And somehow, you've never felt more at home. The celebration after the inspection is not so much a party as a collective exhalation with snacks. So people slump in chairs like they've just run a marathon, powered only by stew and adrenaline. The bard is passed out on top of his lute, which is impressive considering he played it 5 minutes ago. The chicken is perched triumphantly on the official scroll, now slightly pecked at the corners. No one dares move it. It's become a holy relic. You're still holding the same mug from earlier. Not because you haven't had a refill, but because whenever you finish, someone tops it up again, like they're afraid of letting your hand feel lonely. The barkeep leans on the bar and mutters, "We lived through nobles, inspectors, and a goat-led beverage incident. We deserve a day off." There's a general murmur of agreement, interrupted only by the lad yelling from the kitchen, "Can we please stop storing cheese in the chimney?" You sip, you sigh. You let yourself sink deeper into the tavern's worn bench, the wood shaped by 1,000 tired backs like yours. And then, because someone says, "We should go on a retreat," the room freezes. The barkeep squints. "Go where?" "The woods," the bard exclaims, miraculously conscious again. "To reconnect with nature, refresh the spirit, get bitten by fewer bureaucrats." A murmur of excitement ripples through the tavern. Someone yells, "We'll bring stew!" Someone else yells, "Let's leave the goat in charge," and is promptly ignored. And so it begins. Tavern goes camping. Preparation is predictably chaotic. The merchant packs 7 cloaks, 1 frying pan, and a jar labeled "Adventure Raisins." The bard insists on bringing 3 instruments and a half-written opera. The pines have feelings too. The lad volunteers to manage supplies, then forgets to pack spoons. Again. You are recruited to carry the hospitality bag, which contains mugs, 3 candles, a comb, and what looks like a small plush cabbage. No one explains. You stop asking. The goat is reluctantly left behind, entrusted with the chicken and the spare key. It watches you go with the weary gaze of someone who's seen too many plot twists. You travel, by foot, through fields, along creeks, past a man yelling at clouds and a sign that reads, "Beware of soft-shelled hedgehogs." Eventually you arrive after a great deal of enthusiastic wandering and very little navigation. The clearing is perfect. Trees tall as stories, grass soft enough to nap in, a fire pit made of optimism and very optimistic sticks. Everyone spreads out, throws down cloaks and collectively decides, this is now home. Immediately the bard begins composing nature songs using only the sounds of frogs and indignation. The merchant sets up a tent by folding a blanket over a log. The lad is trying to catch dinner with a shoelace and a persuasive worm. The barkeep watches it all with folded arms. You people exhaust me. By sunset there's a fire. Bread on sticks. Stew bubbling in a pot suspended over the flames, smelling like last Tuesday's memories and something vaguely cinnamon. You sit beside the fire, watching sparks fly upward like gossip. Someone is softly humming, someone else is softly snoring. The trees creak like they're whispering secrets to the stars. The barkeep passes you a mug. "We should do this more often," she says. You smile. "Without the goat?" She snorts. "He'd hate the bugs." Suddenly, from the woods, a howl. The lad bolts upright. "What was that?" The bard gasps. "A ghost!" The merchant says, No, it's probably just a very judgmental squirrel." You stand slowly. "Should we check?" A pause. Then the barkeep shrugs. "Let's take torches and panic in small manageable groups." You light a lantern. The group tiptoes into the woods, stepping over mushrooms, ducking under branches, and trying very hard to act like this is part of the plan. You reach a clearing. There, standing in the moonlight, is a sheep. Just a sheep. It stares at you. You stare back. Then, from behind a bush, a man appears. "Oh, thank heavens," he cries. "You found Gertrude." This is his sheep. She ran away during a dramatic reading of his weather journal. The man introduces himself as a freelance fog poet and insists on performing a stanza in gratitude. It begins, "Dampness, my oldest friend." You retreat politely. Back at camp, the bard has written a new piece titled, "Ode to the Lost Lamb and the Freelance Soul." He performs it while you sip your mug and stare at the fire, amazed once again at the tavern's ability to turn every situation into a bedtime story. Someone toasts. "To Gertrude, to fog, and to the complete lack of planning that got us here." You drink, you laugh, and you realize something under a quilt of stars, with the fire crackling and the stew bubbling, and your legs tangled in someone else's blanket. This tavern doesn't need 4 walls to feel like home. It just needs people. Loud, strange, endearing people. And the promise that even if tomorrow is full of rain, debt, or dramatic sheep, you'll face it together, one mug at a time. You wake in the forest to hear someone attempting to sing harmony with a frog. The frog is winning. You open your eyes to morning mist curling between the trees like it's lost and too polite to ask for directions. Dew clings to your boots. The blanket wrapped around your shoulders smells faintly of ash, thyme, and someone's dreams of a cinnamon roll that never quite materialized. The bard is already up, humming to himself and gently plucking a lyre made from what appears to be a repurposed cheese rack. "Nature sings," he says, "and I accompany." A beetle crawls across his sheet music. He thanks it for the inspiration. The lad, meanwhile, is crouched near the fire pit, poking embers and muttering, "If I can warm the tea without waking the stew, maybe I'll survive breakfast." He's developed a complex relationship with the pot, which simmers ominously and smells like someone tried to steep ambition in cabbage. You sit up, stretch, and feel your spine pop like applause. The barkeep emerges from a bush, holding a perfectly round rock and a handful of wild herbs. "This is tea now," she announces. No one argues. Breakfast is a glorious disaster. There are acorn pancakes, a bit chewy, roasted root salad, mostly bark, and something the merchant insists is a marshmallow, but looks suspiciously like a lump of boiled lichen with sugar. Still, it's warm, edible, and served with enthusiasm. In the world of camping, this is five-star cuisine. You sip your barkeep brewed tea. It tastes like firewood and memories of cinnamon. The mug warms your fingers, and for a moment, everything feels perfectly unbalanced in precisely the right way. Because they followed, the actors set up an outdoor stage using sticks, leaves, and someone's bedsheet. Today's feature: The Trees Weep for You, Gregory. A tragicomedy in 3 acts involving unrequited love, rainfall, and a cursed potato. The cast includes 2 people, 1 sock puppet, and a pile of moss for dramatic tension. They rehearse at full volume. You retreat to a quiet log near the creek, joined moments later by the barkeep. She sits beside you and says, "Don't get used to this piece. Something's always waiting to fall out of a tree or declare itself mayor." You nod. "That's comforting." She chuckles, then leans back against the log. "You know, there was a time I thought I'd never leave the city." You blink. "You lived in a city?" She nods. "Briefly. Ran a tavern that served wine so thin you could see your debt through it. Missed the smell of wood smoke, the sound of goats, the taste of stew that doesn't apologize." You smile. "Do you miss it?" She shrugs. "Sometimes. But not the people. They never laughed with their whole bodies. Always just their teeth." A squirrel drops a nut onto the bard's head. He turns it into a lyric. You sip your tea. "I think I'd rather stay out here forever." She raises an eyebrow. "You say that now? Wait till it rains." As if summoned, a single drop hits your forehead. You both stare up. The sky, so far, is a gentle gray, like a goose deciding whether to honk or nap. The leaves shiver. The air smells of damp soil and smug clouds. Within minutes, the drizzle begins. You dash for shelter. The tent is now mostly decorative, held up by a heroic stick and faith. You huddle beneath it with the lad, the bard, the merchant, 2 actors, and a chicken, who is inexplicably dry. The stew bubbles like it's trying to boil history. The rain intensifies. Soon, the forest is humming. Drops tapping leaves, branches swaying, and thunder rolling in the distance like someone dragging furniture across the sky. It's oddly comforting. The bard strums gently. The merchant snores. The lad is arguing with a wet squirrel about territory. You sit and watch. Eventually, the barkeep joins the huddle, soaked to the bones but smiling. She plops beside you and says, "Told you." You grin. "Worth it." The storm rumbles, and someone begins telling stories. No script, no stage. Just words passed hand to hand like bread. You hear tales of taverns that float, ducks that predict the weather, and legendary soup that once ended a war simply by being terrible. You contribute your own. The tale of the royal inspection that shouldn't have worked. The goat's role gets exaggerated with each telling. By the end, it's fluent in 3 languages and faked 10 documents. Applause follows. When the rain finally lets up, the clearing is steam and sparkle. The air is crisp. The fire hisses softly. You step out, stretch your arms, and breathe in deeply. And then, you hear it. A low rumble, not thunder, not stomachs, but wheels, wooden, wobbly, a cart. Approaching. Everyone tenses. You peer through the trees. And out from the mist comes a man riding a cart pulled by a bear. Yes, a bear. The man wears a tall hat, striped in 2 shades of questionable taste, and a coat made entirely of mismatched buttons. He stops at the edge of the clearing, stands, and declares, "I bring riddles!" You sigh. Of course, he's a traveling riddler, one of the lesser-known medieval professions right after eel counter and sarcastic bell ringer. He hops off the cart, tosses down a carpet, and unrolls a scroll the length of a canoe. "If you solve my riddles," he proclaims, "I give you sweets." The actors cheer. The bard tries to high-five the bear. It doesn't respond. You glance at the barkeep. She shrugs. I've heard worse reasons to gather. And so begins the Great Riddle-Off, which will include wrong answers, absurd logic, and at least one person accidentally proposing to a turnip. But that's a story for another evening. Tonight, you sit back down by the steaming fire, warm mug in hand, wet socks drying by the blaze, and smile at the world. Because once again, the tavern has followed you into the woods. And somehow, it made it weirder. The Riddler's scroll is absurdly long. Not just difficult to carry long. Not just could double as a blanket long. A goat tripped over it, and the scroll one long. He unrolls it with a grand ceremony involving a spin, a flourish, and shouting, "Behold!" while nearly decapitating a mushroom. The bear sits behind him with the patience of someone who has seen this routine too many times and is emotionally checked out. The Riddler beams. "We begin!" The first riddle is shouted with dramatic flair. "I walk on 4 legs in the morning, 2 at noon, and 3 by dinner. What am I?" You all groan. "It's a person," the lad yells. "That's the oldest riddle known." The Riddler gasps, clutches his hat, and swoons into the bear. Correct, but rude. The bard bows deeply. "We are tavern trained. You'll need to be cleverer than that." The Riddler narrows his eyes. "Very well. Round 2. What follows is not so much a riddle competition as a communal brain melting. The questions get weirder. The answers get more philosophical. At one point, someone confidently shouts, "Socks," before realizing the question was, "What runs but has no legs?" You're not doing much better. A riddle involving onions and betrayal has you spiraling. The merchant suggests emotional garlic. The chicken squawks, possibly an answer, protest. Still, laughter bubbles up after each failed attempt. Someone starts scoring based on how dramatically wrong each guess is. The goat wins 3 rounds. Eventually, the Riddler lowers his scroll. You are bold, and wrong, but bold. He reaches into his cart and hands out small bundles wrapped in waxed cloth. Inside, sweets, honey cakes, sugared almonds, and something labeled unverified caramel. You eat it anyway. It's sticky, alarming, and perfect. In exchange, the barkeep offers him a ladle. "A ladle?" he asks, eyes wide. "A magic one," she deadpans. "It only stirs when it feels like it." He accepts with reverence and departs, bears in tow, disappearing into the trees as dramatically as he arrives. The actors bow to the empty woods. The bard plays a tune that sounds like a confused squirrel falling in love. The sun begins to set behind the tree line, painting everything gold. The lad collapses into the grass. That was exhausting, in a fun way, like running from a duck. You lie beside him, sugar buzzing in your veins. That bear didn't blink once. "Professional," he whispers. The barkeep stands near the fire, hands on hips, looking over her unofficial staff. A half-sleeping bard. A goat draped in wildflowers. A merchant painting "Winners of the Riddle-Off" onto a log with soup. And a chicken pecking at a mushroom like it owes her money. She nods. "We're heading home in the morning." He groans all around. "Before you say anything," she adds, "we've got 3 deliveries. 2 new barrels coming, and a customer who claims to be part frog. I need everyone upright, packed, and slightly sober by sunrise." Everyone groans louder. But the night isn't over yet. No, someone, possibly you, suggests one final campfire tale. Not spooky, it's just legendary. And because no one argues, the bard clears his throat, raises a mug of suspiciously fizzy cider, and begins. He tells the tale of the first tavern. A myth, of course, but in this group, all myths are just underfunded truths. They say it was built in the middle of a battlefield, between 2 armies too tired to keep fighting. The tavern keeper poured drinks so good that both sides dropped their swords to toast instead. By morning, the war was postponed, and a stew recipe had been traded in place of a treaty. He describes how the tavern grew, not by bricks, but by stories. It moved with travelers, popped up in villages that had forgotten how to laugh. It appeared where needed most, carried by rumor and hope, and someone who remembered how to tap a barrel without waking the spirits inside. Someone adds that the first tavern had no roof, just stars.
Someone else says it still exists if you know the right toast to summon it.
The bard finishes with a line that silences the group. Any place can be a tavern, if the door is open and the fire's warm. The lad exhales. That's the nicest thing I've heard all week. The barkeep mutters, "You need to get out more." And slowly, like mugs being set down and conversations gently ending, the night settles. Blankets are found. Feet are tucked in. Someone sings softly to a turnip. You curl under a blanket that smells like pine needles and a slightly burnt pie. The fire dies down to glowing embers. Crickets sing back up. And somewhere nearby, the goat gently sneezes. You're almost asleep when the lad whispers, "Do you think there's a first tavern?" You smile in the dark. Maybe, but I think we brought it with us. Morning comes wrapped in birdsong and regret. You blink awake to find the chicken sitting squarely on your chest like a judgmental paperweight. It squawks once, hops off, and resumes its morning patrol, pecking the embers with all the solemnity of a tiny fire marshal. You sit up slowly. Your blanket is damp with dew and pine dreams. Around the clearing, your companions are in various stages of waking up and pretending not to. The merchant is using a cabbage leaf as a pillow. The bard is singing softly in his sleep. Lyrics include socks, regrets, and sauerkraut. The lad is curled beside the stew pot, muttering about inventory and betrayal. The barkeep stands at the forest's edge, arms crossed, scanning the horizon like a disappointed general. She turns. "Pack it up." "But breakfast," the bard groans. "Have a pine cone," she replies. The goat sneezes, rolls over, and goes back to sleep. Breaking camp is a chaotic ballet of mismatched priorities. The merchant insists on repacking his adventure raisins in proper emotional order. The lad wants to document every stick of firewood for his stew journal. The actors try to fold the sky, or maybe the tent, it's unclear. You're in charge of making sure no one forgets the chicken, which sounds simple until the chicken disappears for 45 minutes and returns wearing a new hat. Eventually, the gear is packed, the fire doused, and the bard dramatically sprinkles herbs into the wind for closure. The herbs blow directly into his face. He sneezes, closure achieved. The journey back begins. It takes twice as long because the cartwheel breaks. The merchant insists on a detour to show everyone a rock shaped like a duck. It's a potato. The bard gets stuck in a philosophical argument with a tree. The lad accidentally drops the stew pot down a hill and insists on a rescue mission. You arrive at the tavern just as the sky darkens. Not from time, but from weather. Storm clouds gather like gossip. The wind smells of rain, and the decisions end with soggy cloaks and dramatic sighing. The barkeep opens the door, steps inside, and breathes. Everyone follows. And just like that, without ceremony, trumpet, or toast, you're home again. The tavern embraces you like a favorite blanket with crumbs in the folds. You light the hearth. The lad unpacks the stew pot, dented but dignified. The bard kisses his lute. The chicken hops onto the bar and resumes her post, pecking a list titled "Suspicious Customers." The goat returns from wherever it was staying. No one knows, no one asks, and takes up position by the hearth with a grumpy snort and a triumphant fart. Rain begins to fall. Outside, it drums on the roof like someone playing a slow lullaby on a potato. Inside, the tavern glows. There's no big feast this time, no performance, just warmth, comfort, the quiet joy of being back where the benches remember your weight and the mugs know your grip. You sit by the fire, wrapped in a blanket, sipping something herbal and possibly questionably alcoholic. The barkeep hands you a bowl of stew, less experimental than usual but familiar in all the best ways. "You did good," she says. You blink. "Me?" She nods. "Held the line. Didn't lose the goat. Found the chicken's hat. That's more than some do in a year." You smile, cheeks warm. Thanks. She sits beside you, sipping from her mug. You know, she says, most people pass through. They drink, they laugh, they vanish into the next thing. You nod. But you stayed. You blink. Is that weird? She shrugs. Depends who you ask. Outside, thunder grumbles like an older man with a sore back and strong opinions. Inside, someone starts snoring into a bread roll. You sit quietly. Then, almost as if summoned by the universe's sense of comedic timing, the door bangs open. Everyone jumps. In walks a stranger. Soaked, hooded, boots muddy, eyes wild. They glance around, take a few heavy steps toward the bar and whisper, "Is this the tavern that survived the bear cart, the riddle war, and the turnip incident?" The room falls silent. The barkeep leans forward. Who's asking? The stranger lowers their hood. A dramatic pause. Then, "I'm looking for work. I can sweep, cook, and interpret goat dreams." The lad gasps. "A dream whisperer." The bard nods solemnly. "We've needed one." The barkeep stares at the newcomer, then nods once. "Welcome aboard." Just like that, the stranger is part of the tavern, because that's how it works here. You never really apply. You arrive, survive, make someone laugh, and boom, you're on the cleaning rota by morning. The newcomer sits beside you. "You're the spirit of the tavern, right?" they ask. You blink. "That's sort of unofficial." They grin. "Still, feels right." You grin back. Outside, lightning flashes. Inside, the fire roars. And in your heart, you know, this isn't the end of the road. It's just another story brewing. The stranger is assigned mop duty within the hour, not as punishment. It's more of a rite of passage. They accept gracefully, wielding the mop like a knight brandishing a lance, declaring solemnly, "I shall duel the sticky shadows in the name of cleanliness." The bard weeps. "Such poetry." The chicken pecks the mop approvingly. You, meanwhile, find yourself assigned to a far more dangerous task. The lost and found cupboard. Or, more accurately, the cupboard of things never properly found, but no one dared throw away. It's behind the bar. The barkeep hands you a key attached to a bone. "Don't ask," she says. You open the cupboard. The smell hits you first. A mix of lavender, mildew, and possibly vengeance. Inside are 5 unmatched gloves, 3 spoons of unknown origin, 1 hat labeled "Do Not Return," a sock filled with beans, a scroll titled "The Emotional State of Cheese." You inventory what you can. A few things snarl back. You close it carefully and note, "Still alive." Mostly. Meanwhile, the actors, who have not left, will never leave, and may now technically be furniture, are preparing a new play. The Mop in the Moon, a tale of damp redemption. It's heavy on metaphor, light on dialogue, and features a dramatic scene where someone whispers to a puddle for 6 minutes. The goat is cast as the moon. Naturally. The lad interrupts rehearsal with a proclamation. "We're running low on flour, pickles, and whatever it is the chicken eats when she's angry." No one dares guess. A supply run is declared. You've volunteered, of course. You, the lad, the merchant, and the newly recruited dream-whispering mop knight set off through the rain-drenched village, armed with a wheelbarrow, 4 umbrellas, none functional, and a list that reads, "Flour, pickles, tolerant something, nice for the goat." Along the way, the merchant insists on stopping at a stall selling haunted sausages. The seller whispers, "Each bite holds a memory." The merchant buys 3. One of them groans. You pretend not to hear. At the mill, you haggle with a man who measures flour with a suspiciously short spoon and insists on being paid in riddles or buttons. You settle on a trade involving a performance of "The Emotional State of Cheese," a half-bean sock, and an interpretive sneeze from the bard, relayed via the mop knight. You're handed a jar so potent the lid hisses when touched at the pickle shop. The label reads, "Do not open near open flames or emotional bards." You pack it carefully. On the way back, the cart breaks. Not catastrophically, just defiantly. A wheel pops off. The lad stares at it and says, "I knew that wheel was plotting something." You sigh. Now what? The mop knight offers to carry the flour on their back like a hero ascending a doughy mountain. The merchant straps the pickles to his chest. You cradle the cabbage like a newborn. Dignity is abandoned. Teamwork prevails. You return, soaked and triumphant. The barkeep greets you with a nod. "No one died?" "Not on the outside," the merchant replies, removing the haunted sausages and whispering, "Tell no one." The tavern is warm. Mugs are passed around. Bread is baked. The goat is gifted a knitted scarf made from what might be cobwebs and ambition. Rehearsals resume. You resume existing somewhere between helpful and increasingly integral. That night, rain taps gently on the roof, and the fire glows like a drowsy dragon. The bard performs a new song. It's about the mop knight. It's about flour. It's about finding purpose in strange places and learning to love puddles for what they are. The rhyme scheme wobbles. The goat interrupts with a sneeze. Everyone claps. The stranger sits beside you. "You weren't lying," they say. "About what?" "This place." You grin. "It lies all on its own. I just hold the door open." They raise a mug. "To taverns that aren't supposed to make sense." You clink mugs. Across the room, the lad is composing a stew, using only green ingredients. Blog is bog as all avoid is six. He mutters things like aspirational celery and confused leeks. The merchant is trying to trade the haunted sausage to the chicken, who is unimpressed. The barkeep sits at the bar, sketching something on a scrap of parchment. You peek. It's a rough map, a river, a crossroads, a symbol that might mean next. You raise an eyebrow. Blogas, she shrugs. Taverns like this don't stay still forever. Sometimes they move, sometimes they're called. You ask, "Are we being called?" She sips her drink. Maybe. Or maybe the stew's just spicy again. You look around. The walls are full of mismatched mugs and stories. As Daver, there takes near the people who came here for different reasons and stayed for the same one. Because somehow, without meaning to, they belonged. And suddenly, you understand. You're not just in a tavern, you're part of one. A living, clattering, ridiculous, wonderful thing that may someday move on, but for now, it's here. And so are you. I grafted my life setup down here. Portner deals with s'more on Reyear. You dream that night. Not of dragons, knights, or taxes, though those are scary. You dream of a hallway made entirely of tavern benches. You walk barefoot over sticky floors while floating mugs drift past you, whispering compliments. A spoon opens a door. Behind it, a stew that knows your name. It seems for your halltail to take off her. There's a whole video in the mean. You wake smiling. The morning light is warm and lazy, crawling across the floorboards like a cat that's lived here longer than anyone dares question. The tavern is quiet save for the soft rustle of the bard's snoring, the occasional creak from a stool settling its issues, and a single thump, probably the merchant wrestling with haunted sausage again. You can use the floorboard you vaulted him. You sit up slowly. Your blanket has become tangled around your ankle like a clingy X. You free yourself with a flourish that would earn applause if anyone were awake to witness it. The lad appears with 2 mugs of what he calls hope water. It's warm, a little spicy, and contains a suspicious sprig of something green. You sip it. Your tongue tingles. You feel ready to make one good decision today. "Big day," the lad says. "I zest offer come up to the result features now." You nod. You have no idea why. He explains, "Today's the day we give the tavern a name." You blink. "It didn't have one?" He shrugs. "We always just called it the tavern, or that place with the goat. But the bard says it's time, is it?" Of course he does. The bard is already standing on a bench, holding a scroll and wearing a hat made of paper and ego. "Friends, fools, furniture, lend me your ears," he declares. "We name this noble hall once and forever." The barkeep rolls her eyes. "Again?" He waves her off. "Tradition demands a name, even if we immediately forget it afterward." A meeting is held. The long table is cleared. Mugs are filled. The goat is given a seat of honor and promptly uses it to chew on a menu. Names are suggested. Some are poetic. The hearth eternal. Some are ridiculous. Ye old dribble cup. One is just a drawing of a carrot with sunglasses. Debate breaks out. The merchant insists it is something majestic. The lad wants it to reference spoons. The stranger suggests the wandering mug, which gets quiet nods from several corners. The chicken pecks out a vote on a piece of bread. It's unclear what it means, but everyone claps anyway. The barkeep stands, mug in hand. She doesn't shout, she doesn't declare, she says, "Whatever name we choose, it should mean this place welcomes fools and heroes alike, and that once you've walked through that door, you're not just a customer." A pause. You're part of the mess. Everyone cheers. Eventually a name is agreed upon. The scroll is sealed after a long, chaotic, deeply unnecessary mime performance and a minor interpretive dance. The tavern shall now be known as the Mug and Echo. No one's entirely sure what it means, but it feels right. The bard writes a song on the spot. The chorus is catchy, if slightly off-key. The goat contributes backup bleeding. The chicken pecks the beat. Someone records it in the stew ledger for posterity. The lad makes a sign. It's crooked, perfectly. Later that day, a traveler arrives as soft drizzle patters outside, and the fire crackles with the smell of pine and possibilities. She pushes open the door, water dripping from her cloak, and pauses on the threshold. Is this the Mug and Echo? You and 3 others nod at the same time. She smiles. I heard the stew tells stories. It sometimes sings too, the lad says. The bard bows deeply. Welcome. You've just missed the riddle bear, the haunted ham, and an award-winning mop, but the cider's awake, and the goat tolerates new faces. The woman removes her hood. That's all I need. She's handed a mug before she even reaches the bar. A seat clears by the fire. The sign above the hearth now glows slightly. Not with magic, just memory. You watch her settle in. Another thread is woven into the tapestry, and then the barkeep approaches you. We're getting visitors now, she says quietly. Words spreading. Might be time to think bigger. You blink. Bigger stew pot? She grins. Always, but also, maybe a second stool? Maybe a shelf that doesn't threaten your life when you sneeze near it. You smile. You're talking about repairs. She nods. And additions. And making sure the roof doesn't fall in next time the bard stages a dramatic thunder monologue. You look around. At the mugs. The mess. The memories. At the traveler now, laughing with the stranger, trading stories like coins. And you realize this tavern, named or not, settled or wandering, isn't just a place. It's a promise. No matter how strange the world gets, how loud, lonely, or long the days may be, there will always be a place like this. Somewhere. Waiting. You nod. I'll help fix it, you say. The barkeep clinks mugs with you. To the Mug and Echo, she says. To the mess, you reply. And in the corner, the goat sneezes approval. The next morning, you find yourself holding a hammer. It's not a metaphor this time. It's an actual, mildly dented, suspiciously sticky hammer handed to you by the barkeep, with a nod and 3 nails tucked behind her ear. We're rebuilding the shelf, she says. The one that tried to assassinate the bard. You nod, solemnly. May it rest in splinters. The tavern is abuzz with activity. Someone's painting the door. Someone else is sweeping the ceiling. Not the floor, ceiling. The goat is dragging empty barrels outside for aesthetic reasons. Or maybe it just likes rolling things downhill. The actors are rehearsing a scene called Wall Collapse, a love story. You're not sure if it's supposed to be helpful, but it involves a lot of sighing and plaster dust. You're assigned to structural support, which sounds vital until you realize it means holding a very long stick while the lad attempts to balance on a ladder of questionable decisions. He waves down at you. If I fall, catch me with your soul. You mumble. I'll catch you with a pillow. He smiles. Close enough. By midday, progress has been made. The shelf is standing. The door has stopped squeaking, thanks to a generous application of mysterious grease from a jar labeled, probably not mayonnaise. The window no longer swings inward when someone sneezes near it. The barkeep surveys everything with pride. This place might not look like much to outsiders, she says, leaning on a broom, but she holds together. Like a soup made of leftovers and lies. Thick, weird, delicious. The merchant walks by, carrying a wheelbarrow full of decorative rocks. They are not decorative. One of them growled. Still, spirits are high. Someone suggests painting a mural on the back wall. The bard immediately drafts a sketch. A goat riding a wave of ale into the sunset, followed by flying mugs and a chicken with a sword. Everyone agrees it's perfect. The mural begins. You're asked to paint the sky. You try. It ends up looking more like a slightly tipsy puddle. The lad paints stars over it. Now it's night, he says, as though solving all artistic crimes with glitter. By evening, the tavern feels transformed. Not just in walls and shelves, but in spirit. It gleams, not with polish, but with fingerprints, with brush strokes, with hammer dents and shared stories embedded in every corner. It doesn't look new, but it looks cared for, which, in this tavern, is a miracle. The barkeep announces a special event to celebrate the renovation. Open mug night. The rules are simple. 1. Take the stage, read the hearthrug. 2. Share anything. A story, a song, a theory about why spoons are superior to forks. 3. Accompaniment to the fire. The bard opens with a ballad about the time he lost his pants in a thunderstorm and discovered humility. It includes interpretive dance and 2 moderately unsafe leaps. The lad recites a stew recipe like it's a dramatic monologue. It ends with, "And then, the leeks betrayed me." The merchant reads from his travel diary, which turns out to be mostly doodles of goats in various disguises. Then, to everyone's surprise, the barkeep takes the floor. She doesn't speak right away. She sips from her mug, looks out the room, and says, "I never planned to run a tavern." Everyone leans in. "I was passing through, same as most. Needed food, a place to sleep. This place was empty. Dusty. 1 chair. A barrel of pickles too haunted to touch." Someone in the back nods solemnly. They've met that barrel. "I lit a fire, poured a mug, stayed 1 night. Then 2. She shrugs. "Then someone else came. Then someone else. And I realized I didn't need to build a tavern. It was already here, just waiting to be remembered." Silence follows. Then, thunderous applause. She bows, muttering, "Never doing that again," and ducks back behind the bar. As the night winds down, mugs are refilled, blankets are shared. The goat wears a party hat and refuses to explain why. You sit beside the hearth, watching flames dance like overexcited actors auditioning for a role as fire but dramatic. The stranger sits beside you. You ever think about what this place would look like if you'd never come in that first day? You do. And it's less, not worse, not broken, just missing something. You. "What's going?" You shrug. "I didn't come here to stay." They grin. No one does. Then the bard says, "Final story of the night." Everyone quiets. He launches into a wild tale of a tavern that floated on a river of gravy, visited by ducks of destiny and a sentient barrel named Steve. It makes no sense. It's perfect. By the time the story ends, half the room is asleep. The other half is pretending not to be. The fire burns low. The wind taps the shutters like a gentle reminder that the world exists, but not urgently. You stretch, yawn, wrap yourself in your blanket, now permanently infused with tavern air, smoke, time, and the faint scent of stew secrets. The barkeep blows out the last candle. The tavern sighs as if to say, "Yes, this is precisely how it should be." You wake to the sound of silence, not the dramatic kind. No storm, no bard doing vocal warm-ups, no goat tap dancing in wooden clogs. Just silence. The kind that only exists for a few precious minutes, before the day realizes you're awake and decides to throw things at you again. You rise slowly, blanket wrapped around your shoulders like a heroic cloak of warmth and yesterday's biscuit crumbs. The tavern is still sleeping. A few gentle snores, a low crackle from the fire that never fully died. You walk through the standard room, step over a chicken, nod at the merchant, asleep upside down on a bench with a sign reading, "Do not disturb unless cheese." You stop by the window. Outside, morning fog hugs the ground like a sleepy cat, curling between stones and barrels. The sky is soft pink, bleeding into gold, the kind of sunrise that whispers, "I'm going to be pretty for 5 minutes, then disappear under clouds again. Enjoy it while it lasts." You do. The barkeep is already up, of course. She's never not up. She's behind the bar, cleaning mugs with an ancient cloth that might qualify as a historical artifact. She doesn't look up. "You're up early," she says. You nod. "So are you." She smirks. "I never sleep. I just recharge behind the barrels." You grin. She pours 2 mugs of something warm and clove-scented and slides one to you. You sip. It tastes like wood smoke in distant holidays.
"Today's quiet," she says.
You blink. Unusual. She nods. "We don't get many of those." And she's right. Because quiet doesn't last here. It stretches for an hour or two, but eventually, someone will try to reinvent soup, or a wandering poet will arrive to compare your furniture to his ex-girlfriend. But this morning, peace. Until the lad bursts in. "Surprise market day!" he yells. So much for peace. Everyone groans in unison like a choir of sleep-deprived furniture. The bard pokes his head out from under a blanket. "Is it the one with the cheese sculptors or the one with the inexplicably angry bees?" "The first one," the lad beams. "Though someone did mention bees. In armor." You sigh. You all know what this means. Excursion. The tavern's main cast is assembled and somewhat dressed within the hour. The goat is wearing a cape, self-assigned. The chicken has a tiny pouch tied to her leg containing 3 dried peas and a mysterious key. The lad has packed a lunch consisting of 2 pickled eggs, half a turnip, and what he calls emergency optimism. The path to the market winds through a forest that never seems to grow in the same direction twice. Trees lean conspiratorially. Ferns whisper rumors. At one point, the merchant swears a bush tried to sell him a potion. You nod like that's normal. And then you arrive. The market. A chaotic sprawl of tents, carts, smells, sounds, and wildly different pricing philosophies. A man is shouting about heirloom onions, a woman balancing eels on sticks, a dog selling art. No one questions it. You split up. The bard goes off to find emotional instruments. The lad is drawn toward a booth labeled "Potatoes That Remember." You and the barkeep wander toward the food stalls. You pass a cheese wheel the size of a wagon. It hums softly. The vendor winks. Aged in a cave with regrets. Next stall, bread spoken to lovingly during fermentation. The barkeep raises an eyebrow. Did it answer? The vendor blinks. Only in dreams. You buy a loaf anyway. It smells like comfort and makes your hands feel wise. Further down, someone's offering fortune readings via pickled radish. The barkeep tries one. She chews. Your path is stable, the fortune teller says, eyes closed. But soon, we'll take a turn. The barkeep snorts. We're walking in a circle. The fortune teller opens one eye. And yet, still true. You find the others near a stall of musical cucumbers. The bard is serenading a tomato. It's going surprisingly well. The lad holds up a scroll. I bought a recipe for invisible soup. The merchant is petting a chicken that isn't yours. You gently remind him. He apologizes to both. You gather your purchases. Odd bread, questionable herbs, a small jar labeled mild panic for cooking, and head back toward the tavern as the sun tilts low. The path home is quieter. Bellies full, pouches lighter. Everyone is tired in that happy, content way that only comes from good food and mild public absurdity. Back at the tavern, you unpack. The goat immediately eats half the turnip. The bard writes a song titled, "Ode to the Cheese That Sang." The chicken disappears with the key and won't say where it fits. You sit by the hearth. The fire welcomes you like an old friend with warm hands and no need for small talk. The barkeep brings you a bowl of stew that tastes faintly of market joy and pickled destiny. And as the sky fades outside and the lanterns flicker to life one by one, you realize this day was nothing special, and yet it was everything. It is the kind of day that turns into stories, the type of story that settles deep in your chest, next to the laughter, warm bread, and knowledge that is somehow in this ridiculous corner of the world you belong. Tang, the tavern has a new smell. Not a bad one, not exactly good either, just curious. It drifts in sometime before dawn, tickles your nose and whispers, "I may or may not involve mushrooms." You wake up blinking at the ceiling, which has somehow gained a crack shaped vaguely like a duck in a top hat. You make a mental note to name it later. In the standard room, the bard is already composing a ballad titled "The Fume of Mystery." His opening line rhymes fungus with among us. You instantly regret being awake. The lad bursts in, holding a small pot. "I found it behind the pantry." The pot is steaming and slightly vibrating. The barkeep eyes it. "Did it hiss at you?" "Yes," the lad beams. "Did you hiss back?" "Twice." The merchant leans over to sniff it and recoils. "That's not stew. That's alchemy with ambition." Naturally, no one throws it out. Instead, it is placed in the center of the table and declared the pot of destiny. A vote is taken. Cheese, 3 votes to keep it, 1 abstention, the goat, and 1 countervote, the chicken, who pecks a firm no into a piece of toast. The pot stays. You spend the morning trying to ignore it. Instead, you help the bard organize his archives, which turn out to be 7 mismatched crates of half-written songs, dried orange peels, and a spoon he insists once belonged to a romantic ghost. The spoon rattles when you hold it. You put it back gently. Midway through sorting a stack of sheet music titled Odes to Possibly Real People, you hear a soft poof from the standard room. You both freeze.
Was that the pot?
You poke your head out. Yes, it's bubbling now. But sideways. The bubbles defy gravity, forming into little floating rings that spin, hover, and then pop with faint sounds like tiny hiccups. The barkeep walks past, holding a mug, and doesn't even blink. "Let me know when it starts singing." You return to organizing the bard's spoons. Later, during lunch, someone tastes the pot's contents. Of course, it's the merchant. He lifts the spoon cautiously, sniffs it, and mutters, "Smells like philosophy and cabbage." He takes a sip. Everyone watches. He blinks once, twice, then slowly turns to the bard and says, "You were right about the spoons." That's all. For the next hour, he speaks only in metaphors and requests to be left alone, with the chair of truth. The goat nods solemnly. No one else tries the soup. The rest of the day is peaceful. Only a place like this can be full of minor accidents and major laughter. Someone drops a jug of cider. It lands upright, spills nothing, and is immediately knighted. The stranger from last week teaches the chicken how to fetch keys. It works disturbingly well. The lad invents a new stew using only things that start with the letter B. The result? Beans, barley, beetroot, breadcrumbs, and something he claims is bison adjacent. It tastes like bravery and bad decisions. Everyone has seconds. You spend the afternoon helping repaint the back wall. The mural has expanded, now featuring a flying mug with wings, a dancing goat, and what looks suspiciously like you, holding a ladle like a sword. The bard shrugs. "You're legend now. Accept it." You do. As twilight descends, the tavern glows golden. Windows fog with warmth. Laughter drifts through the beams like music. The fire crackles a familiar rhythm. You sit by the hearth, holding a mug of something sweet and spiced, watching the goat try to fit into a teacup for reasons known only to itself. The barkeep joins you and sits without a word. You both stare into the flames. Then she says, "It's growing." You raise an eyebrow. "This place," she explains, "we used to get 1 visitor a week, then 1 a day. Now look at us." You nod. "They'll come from farther, won't they?" She smiles. Word travels fast when the stew talks and the goat judges. There's a pause. Then she adds, "I think soon. We'll have to decide what this place is for." You glance around. At the bard, composing an ode to the noble spoon. At the lad, asleep in a barrel, drooling contentedly onto a map labeled Somewhat Accurate World. At the merchant, reciting his grocery list like it's a love poem. The actors rehearsed a piece titled Love in the Time of Pickles.
And you smile. Maybe it's not about what it's for. Maybe it's about who it's with.
The barkeep chuckles. That's dangerously poetic of you. You sip your drink. I blame the soup fumes. The fire pops. Outside, the wind carries the first hint of approaching autumn. Crisp air, red leaves, and a chill that smells like stories yet to be told. You stretch, yawn, and settle deeper into the bench. Tomorrow might bring visitors, repairs, or a traveling troupe of dramatic badgers. But tonight, you are warm. You are full. You are home. The first leaf falls today. Just one. Red as an embarrassed tomato. Slow as honey in winter, it spirals down past the window and lands gently on the tavern's doorstep like it's knocking politely to announce, autumn's here. You've been warned. And you stare at it from your perch by the hearth. Mug in hand, blanket across your knees, goat on your foot, as usual. The barkeep steps beside you, wiping her hands on a cloth that's now more stew than fabric. She eyes the leaf. It begins, she mutters. And indeed, within an hour, it's like the entire season heard its cue. A breeze slips under the door. The floorboards groan in that particular way they do when the humidity drops just enough to annoy them. The stew thickens instinctively. Even the mugs feel warmer, like they've remembered their true purpose. You help swap out the tavern's decorations. Gone are the summer herbs drying on the rafters. In their place, strings of garlic, bundles of sage, and one festive carrot garland. The bard insists is symbolic. Of what, you ask? He blinks. Of commitment. The chicken lays an egg directly into a bowl of flour. No one knows what it means. The lad takes it as a sign to begin baking. By noon, the place smells of cinnamon, cloves, and barely contained chaos. Outside, the sky turns that rich gold-gray color, making every tree look painted and every regret feel poetic. A few travelers stumble in. Damp cloaks, bright eyes, stories to trade. They sit by the fire and melt into the room like sugar in tea. One of them, a wiry man with hands like rope and a laugh like breaking sticks, pulls out a flute and begins playing a tune so sweet the mugs hum along. The bard joins with his lute. Someone finds a drum, or a bucket with a good rhythm, and the tavern becomes music. Even the goat taps its hoof. The stranger, now fully integrated into tavern life, and possibly part furniture, sings softly. A lullaby in a language no one recognizes, but everyone understands. Close your eyes. Let it wash over you. Let the warmth seep in. Later, as the sun begins to sulk behind the hills, the barkeep announces tonight's supper theme. Hearty. That's it. Just hearty. No specifics. Interpret as needed. The lad interprets this as put everything in one pot and add optimism. The merchant donates something he calls seasonal cheese. The bard insists on including roasted apples for dramatic effect. The resulting stew is brown. Unapologetically brown. But it hugs the tongue like a good memory. You eat it with crusty bread and good company. You don't ask what's in it, no one does. As the stars begin to flicker in the sky, hesitant, bashful, you all gather near the hearth for what has now become a tradition. Nightly tales. The rules are simple. One person starts a story, the next continues it. And so on, until someone falls asleep or invents a time-traveling cabbage. Tonight, it begins with a fox. A fox with a secret. The bard starts. There once was a fox who knew how to brew stew. The lad picks up. But only during a full moon, using turnips blessed by a frog. The merchant adds, one day, the fox forgot the frog's birthday. Gasps all around. The story swirls. There's betrayal, redemption, a festival involving juggling sheep, a romantic subplot between a mushroom and a pine cone. By the time it ends, 27 plot twists later, the goat is wearing a cape again, the fire is low, and half the tavern is asleep. You're still awake. Barely. The barkeep sits across from you, sipping her cider, watching the embers. You know, she says quietly, this place used to be quiet. You raise an eyebrow. She nods. Before you. Before the lad. Before the goat decided it was a manager. You smile. Do you miss the quiet? She thinks. Then, not one bit. Silence settles. Not the awkward kind. The cozy kind. The kind that wraps around your shoulders and says, stay, just a little longer. You sip the last of your drink. It's lukewarm now, still perfect. Outside, the wind sings through the trees. Inside, someone mumbles in their sleep about honor among vegetables. You stretch, yawn, feel your bones creak like well-loved floorboards, and you realize it's almost time, not to leave, but to rest. Because even in a tavern like this, where soup sometimes levitates and riddles are considered acceptable currency, rest is sacred. You rise slowly. The goat watches you go, judging, respectfully. You nod. It nods back. You head toward your corner nook, where your blanket waits like an old friend who knows your favorite side to sleep on. You curl up. Let the hum of the tavern lull you. Let the fire whisper its last jokes. Let the world turn without needing your permission. Because tomorrow, the leaves will fall faster. The air will bite a little harder. The stew will get thicker. And the stories will keep going. But for now, you rest. Right where you belong. You awaken to the soft sound of sweeping. Not the aggressive kind that says, "We're closing in 5 minutes, finish your drink and get out." No. This is the gentle, rhythmic brushing of someone who enjoys it, or more likely, is stalling until the kettle boils. It's the barkeep, of course. She doesn't look up. It just sweeps a trail of breadcrumbs and glitter across the tavern floor like a sacred dance. You watch her momentarily, then sit up with the grace of a potato reluctantly rolling downhill. The tavern is calm. Sunlight slants in through warped glass, painting golden shapes onto wooden tables. Someone left a half-eaten biscuit balanced perfectly on the rim of a mug. The chicken stands atop the bar like a tiny judgmental gargoyle. The goat is still asleep, hooves twitching in what appears to be a dream about dominance and turnips. The bard yawns so dramatically that he knocks over a stool with his aura. "Good morning," he says, "or whatever part of the day we've landed in." The lad emerges from behind a curtain, carrying what might be breakfast. You're not sure. It smells like cinnamon and defiance. "Special treat today," he beams. "Final harvest porridge. It's got apples, oats, mystery seeds, and just a whisper of existential dread." You take a bite. It tastes like a farewell. Not the sad kind. The kind that lingers in your chest like the last warm note of a good song. The kind that knows you'll be back, even if you don't say it out loud. The barkeep slides into the seat across from you, cradling her mug. She doesn't say anything for a long while. Then, "We're not closing." You blink. "I didn't think you were." She nods. "But it feels like something's ending, doesn't it?" You consider this. Around you, the actors rehearse one last scene. The merchant is packing a bag full of oddly shaped cheeses and whispers. The stranger folds a new map, blank parchment, yet to be claimed. You nod. "It feels like the last page of a book," you say. She smiles. "Or the first page of a new one." The bard joins you both. "I've written a final ballad," he declares. "About us, about this place." You raise an eyebrow. "Final?" He pauses. "Okay, fine. Intermission ballad." He clears his throat. He begins to play. And the tavern listens. It's a song about mugs and goats, about stew and songs, about how sometimes you walk into a place expecting nothing and find family in the cluttered chaos of it all. By the time he finishes, no one claps. Not because it wasn't good, but because clapping would break the spell. The barkeep exhales slowly. Guess that's our cue. A few regulars drift in, merchants blink at the atmosphere, and instinctively sit quieter. The lad lights a candle and sets it in the window. The chicken hops down and begins arranging breadcrumbs into a pattern that may or may not be a farewell rune. And you? You finish your porridge. Stand. Look around. The hearth is still warm. The walls are still full of echoes. Your favorite mug is right where you left it. You walk outside. The air is crisp now. trees blushing orange and red. The breeze wraps around your shoulders like a reminder that change doesn't always shout. Sometimes, it just hums at the edge of your ear. Behind you, the tavern door creaks open. The barkeep leans out. "You going somewhere?" You shrug. "Maybe just a walk." She smirks. "You'll be back." You grin. "You won't even notice I left." She laughs. "We always notice." The bard appears beside her. "Don't forget to send postcards. From dreams. Or strange soups." The lad waves frantically. "Bring back new stew theories." The merchant shouts, "If you find a talking spoon, name it Harold." Even the goat lifts its head and bleats once. High praise. You walk. Just a little way. Just past the path. Past the fields. To the bend in the road where the trees part and the sky opens wide. And for a moment you pause. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. And smile. Because you carry it with you. Not the stew, not the mugs, not even the goat, though it is following at a suspicious distance. The tavern. Wherever you go, there it is. Warm, welcoming, wonderfully weird, just waiting to begin again. The fire is low now. A gentle glow flickered across the stone hearth, casting soft shadows on the mugs, floor, and tired corners of a long, lovely evening. Someone has placed a blanket over the bard, though it may have been the goat. The chicken is asleep on a windowsill, dreaming of breadcrumbs and quiet rebellion. The barkeep has blown out the lanterns, one by one, each flame sighing into the darkness like it too has earned some rest. And you? You're tucked into your usual spot, back against warm wood, wrapped in a familiar blanket, eyes growing heavier with every slow breath. The tavern around you hums, not with noise, but with memory, with stories half whispered into mugs, with laughter woven into the walls. Outside, a breeze rustles the leaves, gentle as a lullaby. The night is deep now, still, kind. And in this final, quiet moment, you are precisely where you must be. Not because the tavern is perfect, but because it welcomed every imperfection like an old friend. Your mug sits empty beside you. The fire hums one last note, and the world narrows to warmth, to softness, to sleep. So close your eyes, traveler. Let go of the path for night. The stew can wait. The goat is on watch. And the story? It'll still be here when you wake.